No. What?
Do it.
No.
Do it.
Behave.
Snickerdoodle.
Behave. Welcome.
Or punish.
That's a pecan Sandy.
Welcome to episode number 85 of Killer POV. This is our holiday horror episode. I'm one of your hosts, Rob G, or as I should say, forever changed Rob G, because I have witnessed a little movie called Possession. I'm going to get to. There's a person who sees you're the person you are before you see Possession, and then once you see it, you're a totally changed man.
I don't think Neil Marshall was that changed.
No, and we'll get to that.
He seemed very
unimpressed.
unchanged. He just posted some shit on my wall, dissing the movie and making fun of it. But
in fact, he was the first person to email me to be like my thoughts. But anyway, that is the biggest Possession fan of all time, Elric Kane.
I probably am. I'll challenge Sam Zimmerman, any of y'all.
Don't you run
out on there.
the Facebook page?
Shh.
Oh,
I am
sorry.
Zawalski.
That's
not
Zawalski.
you.
I did that in the early likes phase, but I don't want people to know, so in case I ever have to like something that will look really self-important, like somebody's like, oh my God, Zulawski. I think you did when we first went, and you're like, Zulawski commented on the Fangoria thing, and I'm like, okay.
It was Zulawski commented on something I did, and I was like, Andre Zulawski just commented on one of my pictures, and Elric was like,
I'm upfront about it. I always say this is a fan site, but unfortunately I get a lot of Polish people writing to me, usually really attractive woman in Polish, sending messages to them, and I have no idea what I mean. So I just write fan, one word. I just write fan.
Are they all asking about the Jump Cut Cafe?
No, none of them are.
Okay, all right.
But he is the cool news. Regardless, before we talk about that, is that actually one of these fans wrote to me, and she turns out to be acting right now in his new film, first in 15 years. So I've managed to get a couple cool photos from the set in Poland. It's a really big book apparently in Poland. Like it was an award-winning book that he's adapting. Quite dark, weird. Mm-hmm. So it's cool. It's been 16 years since he shot a movie. So and he's written something like 30 books in that time, that we are in Polish and French.
Oh, wow.
So he's been prolific in a different way.
Okay, interesting.
Speak Polish and French.
That's Elric, by the way.
That was Elric.
Yes.
I'm Bekah.
That was Bekah. You just heard asking me a question.
Let's look. This is anarchy already. Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Greetings.
With us. Also a Possession fan.
Yes.
Also seen it. And we have a fourth co-host.
How has it been a whole year?
January was the last time I was here.
I was a little
with
worried
Jeremy
you hadn't been
Gardner.
here this year.
No. This is going to be your second time this year.
Apologies.
Our very good friend
Eric
AJ.
Freeman. Oh.
No,
It's not even funny to joke about.
That's not even funny. No, AJ Bowen is here with us. Welcome. Hi.
Happy Christmas.
Yes.
Happy
Kwanzaa,
Christmas.
And the
Saturnalia.
main reason, and actually, it's funny because actually some of our listeners know this, because when we said we were doing holiday horror this morning, someone said, I hope that means that AJ is coming back. One of his favorite subgenres in horror is the Christmas horror film.
And I gotta say, he's dressed the part. He came in like a toboggan and a scarf and gloves.
But there's no head on that
and
snowman.
A sweater.
No, see, look, the head got knocked off.
Yeah, and he's like fully decked out in like this thick sweater, and it's like 60 degrees
it's
outside
LA,
because
so
we're
it's
in
kind of
LA.
warm.
It's warm.
Yeah, no, but that's the kind of commitment.
Here's my question.
AJ brings.
I was on Letterboxd today when I was looking up my Christmas
Films?
list, and one of them was that film. I remember you were attached to it a long time ago, the English one, the Silent Night.
Silent Night of the Living Dead.
Is it still? They made it sound like it had happened, but I assume it hadn't.
It has not. If it has,
Your
know
name
that
was there.
I know that it hasn't because I happened to run into Paul when he was
Paul Davis, the director of that one.
Okay, good.
God, that was like, I feel like we were going to do that movie like for
years ago.
for 2 years or so. And I think it was about 3 years ago. It was very close to going, and I'm friends with Paul, and he was. It just like 99% of movies that are guaranteed happening with even money in the bank fall apart for various reasons. But that one was when Paul contacted me and said, would you like to be in a Christmas horror movie? And I said yes. And he said, would you like to play the son of Tom Savini? Yes. And would you mind coming to shoot in London during the winter? No, I would not mind.
Is it set in London? Is that why?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Or outside of London, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a
I
great
remember
script.
hearing about it back in the day, and it sounded fun. But yeah, on Letterboxd, it felt legit like it had happened.
Yeah,
because it's there as a
interesting.
title with a photo of the cover, and I was like, so there you have it. There's your scoop.
I hope eventually it happens.
Yeah.
And really quickly, just because we're drinking some alcoholic beverages here, and I
nice,
wanted to thank our fan Ron. Kompenstein. I hope I said it right. Ron wrote us on Facebook and offered to send us booze since Elric never buys. So
God, he's
It's
such a
happened before.
cheapskate.
It's happened before.
once, maybe twice.
Yeah, but I had
thank
to
you,
tell
Ron.
him to that time, so it doesn't count.
You bought it for Larry and Glenn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to
Actually, it was.
impress them.
Yeah.
It was,
and my birthday.
It was Rob's birthday, and
I
I
did that,
texted him, and I was like, "Stop and get beer."
I
Just do it.
always make it very simple. He who has more kids and mouths to feed buys less beer for the guys who don't have mouths to feed. That's how I roll.
He challenged me to have kids, and then he
Yeah,
bought
exactly.
all-
You have kids,
Yeah.
and I'm buying all around.
No, that's all right.
That's a standing offer for you too, AJ.
Start by getting Rob like a goldfish or
That's right.
something.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you, Ron. We appreciate it. And we are drinking your beer right now as we speak. Thank you. Okay, so movies we've seen. I mean, this was you stopped me from any
let's talk about
opinions
it. Yeah,
on
you told me
Twitter.
about
No, I loved it. I loved it. It was. I was mentally prepared because
You couldn't have watched it before you went away, and then you perfect place. You know?
I probably would have been a little too emotional. Although, like I was telling you that, like to me, like probably the most emotional kind of quote unquote like breakup or relationship type movie I've seen is the Kozlowski one, the White,
yeah.
Three Colors White. That one's still to this day gets me a little bit because of what it means to me personally. And
Also Polish
when I
director.
saw it, yeah, exactly. But no, Possession was and I don't want this to come off wrong because you said this is kind of a compliment. I laughed a lot.
You should. I mean,
Out
like
loud.
Heinrich. There's no other way to take him when he's like.
Heinrich's amazing, amazing character.
Yeah.
It's
and-
modulated in a way where there are parts that are genuinely funny and other parts that are genuinely like unnerving. That if you're there's probably moments that if you're laughing, maybe there's something wrong with you. Some of the stuff with her in the ballet and her looking at camera, that's a little like kind of piercing and weird. I don't think
No,
it's funny,
it was
but there's
mostly-
definitely intentional humor.
But especially even after he starts to like really, really lose it, he's in the rocking chair and he's like,
sorry.
I love
I love
you
that moment.
too, Heinrich.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
it is
It's
hidden
just
for sure there.
so fantastically hilarious.
Yeah, and that's what I think everything's just so over the top. Like Sam Neill and Isabella Adjani, just their fights. I mean, I've been in fights.
Well, we've been
not
talking about
as
this the other
intense.
night,
Yeah,
right?
no, it was interesting because I just laughed because of the absurdity of it, and I thought that was an interesting, like a Polish thing, I guess.
See, and then I said to you, well, and I really believe this now. I can speak from experience right now. But when I was younger and sort of, I wouldn't have had anything to compare it to. Because when you're single or just dating people and you have something really bad happen, you break up and
It's
you
so
move
easy
on.
to walk away.
And
you
I
could
was
just
saying
be like, fuck this, I'm done.
But especially the screaming and the near hysteria. I feel like some people, I can't speak for other just married people, but married with a kid, which is like this weird anchor that no one wants to leave no matter how bad things get. I've had some arguments where all you have is the power to scream.
Yep.
And if you scream and you both scream and you're both yelling and money, we have no money in this and it's the end of the world. And then there's calmness afterwards, and it's almost like out of your system because you have to come back. I mean, some couples do really end at that point. But I had those more in the last couple of years and I don't think it's even necessarily negative about my relationship as much as it is about the pressure that changes with kids. And I think that movie's really about that. The movie's at the heart Zulawski's therapy, right? Of Heinrich really taking his wife, a version of Heinrich.
He's based on a
Heinrich
real guy
is like apparently like to the beat, the guy who his wife left him for. When he came back from being ostracized from his country, being kicked out of Poland and his movie stolen, gets to France and she's leaving him for this crazy flamboyant guy. And so he kind of had to rebuild. And so there's a lot of anger in there and stuff. But so I definitely think it's heightened. I think it's totally warranted to laugh. But I also think there's these like grains of truth all the way through that movie that make it just, and it keeps changing every few years. If you watch it and you're like, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's like too much. I wouldn't even want to watch it right now,
Right.
It's interesting, but I'm so glad you didn't hate it because I felt like if you would watch it just before you left, I had a feeling you were just going to like hate it.
Right. That might have been true. Yeah.
There's just so much in it. That's
I loved the arguing in circles. That was the part that, like, I mean, I don't think I've ever thrown a chair. I actually have to stop and think about it.
Wait a minute.
the night is young.
But the arguing in circles, because that I feel, and that got even more so when I was married, because suddenly then you know everything about the person and how to push buttons, and it just becomes a constant argument in circles. There's no way you can ever win anything, nor can you leave. It's just a giant circle of hysteria.
Yeah, and then there's things that can't be explained about the movie that even, I mean, Zalewski might know, but...
We'll talk about that later off record, because a lot of it has to do with the ending and stuff. Although I thought it was amazing that that Isabella played 2 roles. The one with blue eyes, and the one with green eyes is just so gorgeous. And maybe
and
just
she's
the way she was
softer.
shot.
My guess is that's kind of about the person leaves you and then you reimagine them. Kind of like Lost Highway. I felt like Lost Highway might have kind of borrowed from that a bit, where you then reimagine them the way you want them to be and kind of place it so that you can have them. Where you can't contain the other one.
No, that's interesting.
But there was that magazine Diabolique that we were talking about. Diabolique. Somebody wrote this really good article and never thought about this part of that movie.
Diabolique.
No, I don't need to listen. I'm not here to be schooled. School marm.
Is that Polish or French?
Yeah, exactly. The Polish. It ends as eek. So they were basically saying that that is a doppelganger, potentially. Like, if you want to have this reading of it, and this isn't really well, that doppelganger and the other one, that they can never be in the same spot. Otherwise, it'd be like the end of the fabric.
Right,
which is what it was. Yeah. So anyway.
Interesting.
There's stuff about it I haven't even thought about.
Right.
Because I think I just experienced it emotionally. I don't even think too much on the film.
And to me, the funniest thing is, I think right after, and I posted it online, was Neil's video. Neil Marshall made a video of the subway scene where she's like freaking out, but edited it to Rob Zombie's Dragula. So it's amazing. It looks like she's just headbanging to Rob Zombie music. So
Descent was my favorite film of the 2000s.
So you can get away with that.
Neil was.
We'll have Neil explain that eventually.
Yeah.
All right. So I saw that. There was the only other thing I saw that I really wanted to bring up, and I know Bekah was on this and you're kind of on it too. That series Black Mirror that you mentioned last week, the UK series. Bousman was the one that mentioned it when he was on our show several months ago.
How many in are you?
It's funny because because it's UK, there's only 3 episodes per season.
And there's 6.
No, that's season 2.
That's season 2.
Yeah, there's 3, and then season 2 is the second.
I thought it was 6 each. I was looking forward to finding more.
It's only 6 episodes. I saw the first 3. I saw the entire first season, and I know this is bold, but I mean, it is some of the best, well-written, dense, satirical television I've ever seen.
And it's funny how people call it, it's like, it's the best follow-up to Twilight Zone. What's ironic about that is probably better because the production values and everything. I mean, I love Twilight Zone, but when you actually look at it, it's actually the satire is looking forward, not looking at where we are now. Yeah. It's almost predicting, like, if we keep going this way with our phones, how we will relate to each other emotionally.
It's so spot on, though, in terms of, like, kind of predicting what the future is going to be.
The third one, I believe, which is the one?
The third one is the one where you get a chip where you can actually record everything that you're physically seeing through your eye and replay it.
A history of you or something.
And I thought, history, everything. I wrote it down here. The entire history of you. Yeah. But I mean, the first episode's absolutely. That's the one that we heard the premise, and I almost wish I didn't know that because
I do too. But it was so funny. It was.
And it's funny
that one was more comedy.
Yeah. But it's not meant to be. And what's interesting is I watched it with my roommate Brendan, who's a huge fan of UK television. I don't watch a lot of stuff, but he does. And he said, he's like, this is so amazing because as ludicrous as this premise is, these are all some of the most serious British actors that are in television, and casting them all to do it is kind of like what makes it, they sell it.
It felt believable somehow. It felt like the way the events were just unfolding.
It seemed so practical and real. And I have to say, it was such a good social
like
commentary
sci-fi.
About how like a politician would handle it, and his wife being more concerned about the public image and everything like that. It seemed so real.
I will say I'm up to 4, so I guess I've seen the first of the second series without knowing it.
Yeah.
And that one is like honestly, it's maybe not a it is sci-fi. It's not maybe as edgy as the others. It's like it's a masterpiece. Like felt like its own movie. It was so emotional.
That's what's interesting is they all feel like mini movies, and honestly, it took me a while to get through I can't marathon that show because it's so even though it's being touted as like a sci-fi Twilight Zone, I think that it's so dark and messed up. Like that's what horror is, like something that's dread inducing. By the end of every episode, I'm like, I need a breather. Like
that's how I was.
Some serious
I
shit.
posted about it on Facebook about how I watched the first episode. And what was actually cool, I watched the first episode with Dave, and he didn't realize that it was like an anthology show.
Yeah.
And as soon as it ended, he was like, where are they going to go?
Oh, that's interesting.
And I was like, no, it's done. He assumed that like the wife walked up the stairs and that the next episode was like a continuation. And I was
Spoiler.
like...
Wife walked upstairs.
That's all you need to know.
I don't think
Sorry, AJ.
It's not a spoiler.
But no, I don't think it's meant to be. I think it feels like watching one feels like you watched a good movie that night, and I feel like that's a great way to watch it.
But then immediately
you'll like it a lot.
after
The performances
ended,
are great
because he had been like building it up to where he wanted to watch something. Like he was expecting it to keep going because he loved those characters, and he was like, "No, I wanted to see what happened tomorrow." And he was like, "Let's go ahead and watch the second one." So we watched the second one immediately afterwards, and it was the one about the bikes.
The bikes,
and that one messed me up so bad mentally because as soon as it started, it was like we watch him on a bike, and I'm like, yeah, I should really get an exercise bike. Everybody in this universe looks really trim and good.
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot of shit while they're on their exercise bikes. I need one. And then by the end, I mean, like, I was like, I'm never going on Facebook again. I'm going vegan.
It's a metaphor.
And,
I think that's called reactive.
Yeah, but it still stuck with me. Like the next day, I was still thinking about it.
I bet you didn't recognize, because I didn't know it was him, but there's like an American Idol-esque sort of spoof in the second episode, and that guy was Rupert Everett.
Yes, I did. Actually, I looked it up because
my God.
the girl...
The Australian sounding?
Yes. That was Rupert Everett.
I did not in a million years pick that as Rupert Everett.
I did look that up and figured that one
awesome.
out because two of the girls in the episode are from Downton Abbey.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was watching it, and it's one of Wraith's girls. I won't give away too much, but I was watching it, and I was like, she looks really familiar. So, like, I'm IMDbing it while I'm watching it.
Is Dan Stevens a major part of Downton Abbey? I've never seen the show, but I was curious to see it after.
Why are you looking at me?
Because you
AJ,
never,
don't you know your British
because you never
television?
appeared in a scene with him, I believe.
Man, all I do is watch American stuff. I'm a patriot.
Sorry, redneck brother.
I don't know about that silly foo-foo English.
Did you watch it? You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
I assume he must have been a major part.
I hear he's very different in
Okay.
that show, though, in terms of appearance and how he is. But honestly, it wasn't possession in terms of relationship stuff. It wasn't possession that got me. It was that episode 3 of Black Mirror.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually thought about you when I was watching that because
I
I felt so kind of devastating about that. Yeah.
Crushed me by the end of that.
It's aimed at nostalgia. People who can't get over things like nostalgia. It's gonna literally imprison him to go. He would rather go through all his memories, even negative, than live.
Yeah, it's
and that can crush you. Yeah,
so brutal.
You guys are giving me a panic attack.
This is our Dr. Phil episode.
You'll have to see them, but spread it out a couple of days.
Take a breather in between.
Well, I really didn't know it was 2 seasons in one thing.
Yeah, and then I guess there's a new one coming on with
Christmas. Then John Hamm.
With John Hamm, yeah, well, that's kind of crazy.
But for those of you listening, Black Mirror is now streaming for free on Netflix instance. So
I was literally about to buy a really expensive import DVD of it because I was getting so sick of waiting because Darren had told us about it.
Yeah,
and so then it was on Netflix.
I can't watch them again though. They're all one shot deals because they're so I can't sit through them.
There's so many movies I feel that way about, and that's when I know usually they're by Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'll watch them and I'll go, that was really wonderful. I'm never going to watch Requiem for a Dream again for the rest of my life. Please put on Happy Gilmore right now.
But you will hum it forever.
All right. What did you guys Yeah, that was pretty much it for me. I mean, me and Elric went to the new Bev. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
I mean, all I'll say is because we're being fairly silent about it, and we won't talk about people and stuff. But man, it was a great experience to go back, and the place looked better than it's ever looked. Mm-hmm. You could see a lot of TLC in it. It just looked, pictures looked great, seats looked great. Just everything about it was a great experience. They love cinema, and that's ultimately where kind of a conversation like that has to end, unless people know owners and stuff. It's none of our business otherwise, you know what I mean? Right. But on just the pure level, we walk in, we're going to see Burt Reynolds' double feature, White Lightning. I expected you had seen the film before.
Oh yeah,
okay,
many times.
And there's a Sharky's Machine trailer, which felt so unfair to me because I told him
worked on that movie.
Oh really?
Yeah, he was a security guard.
Oh, that's awesome.
On Sharky's
Machine. I wanted to watch that as soon as the trailer came. I turned to him, I can't watch Navajo Joe now because I just saw Sharky's Machine trailer.
What you guys want to see.
That was the second one, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But so we get our tickets and they go, oh, just so you know, there's complimentary press booklets, replicas of the original for both films. We walk in and they hand us these beautifully,
not like photocopies. These are legit. I showed AJ. They're legit, beautifully printed, like the movie man. And I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. And Brian Quinn was the guy.
The guy who runs Grindhouse,
does Grindhouse, that we have a good relationship with.
It's just like you can't deny that that's showing passion for the art of movies at the price they're doing. You're like, man,
Yeah,
well, I think to me, what it sounds like, and I'm someone that I haven't been to the New Bev in probably a year.
Yeah.
But what it sounds like is more than a passion for filmmaking. What sounds really unique about what Rob was telling me and what Scott was telling me was that it seems to be about a passion for the theater going experience.
Exactly.
Not the
keep that
modern
alive.
one, the one that we remember that was so fundamental in making us want to be involved in any way with.
Well, yeah, you think about by keeping the prices of, say, Coke and popcorn to like $2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Do they
beyond
still
being
have the cupcakes the size of your face?
No, I think that's Cinefamily, isn't it?
No, they
that might
had,
have been.
they
No, but
had
they-
cupcakes the size of your face.
No,
I heard they
they-
have White Castles there now.
Yeah.
They have White Castle
No,
sliders.
Oh,
But what I was
shit,
going to say is,
that beats
isn't
so
cupcakes.
cheap.
it's
so
not
cheap.
the excitement of like, here's the thing. When you go to the movies now and you buy those things, you actually feel bad.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you just spent so much, like it's not a pleasurable, it's
Yeah.
not about the food. It's like you spend $12 and you just think to yourself for a moment, that was fucking
How do you
retarded.
only spend 12? Because
Or
I get
whatever.
the popcorn and then I always have to get Junior Mints to dump into the popcorn.
You know me, I just eat other
I know.
people's
He
stuff around.
just eats my food.
I take Matthew Curry Holmes every time and he buys it all for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that experience of spending like $3, you really want to buy more and you feel good about yourself.
Elric bought me a popcorn, a soda, and candy, and it was under.
Hold on,
And it was
Elric
under.
bought you?
He did because it was under $5.
Wow.
Yeah.
That wasn't my motivation, but he had bought me a drink.
Now, was the screening in conjunction with the Burt Reynolds auctions that have been going on?
I don't think so. I think it was
No, I
just...
think
Because
they're just
seriously, he has this like wall-size Navajo Joe print that is going for like $20,000. That
It's
I
at the
really
New Beverly.
need
It was
that,
hanging- yeah,
guys.
there was
Yeah, there's
one-
one hanging up at the New Bev.
Oh my god!
I mean,
sure
I
it's
don't like
Quentin's.
hearing this stuff about Bert. I mean, it makes me sad because somebody, we saw Elijah Drenner in line who had just interviewed Bert for, maybe it's White Lightning, or the White Lightning Blu-ray release. He wasn't in the same room, but he said the interview went great, but he was saying, some people speculated that they're going to build a Burt Reynolds museum. And then I just kind of said, but then he's selling his collection to random strangers. And somebody else had said there's health things, and you start to put the pieces together and go, oh man, I don't want, it's such a bummer. And it's a different Burt now, I'm sure, than the Burt we all loved back then. But it was cool to be reminded just how like virile and like funny is to watch, and in White Lightning, how good an actor. That's a great performance.
Yeah,
Like
it
the
really
dialogue is.
It really is. And there's that thing that he went into that is also actually really hard to pull off, that sort of broad everyman thing that he was doing, that he then moved into TV to do with Evening Shade. But that stuff that was dropping in the early 70s and in the mid 70s before you started getting into Hal Needham stuff is fucking phenomenal acting.
Yeah, and some of the Aldrich stuff he did is,
Yeah.
I mean, even Longest Yard, we saw the trailer to that again, and it just made me want to just run out and
That
watch it
movie
again.
is so dark and like the best way possible. It's just so, that movie is sweaty.
Yeah.
Just grimy and filthy.
That's the one that starts in Savannah. He's driving around the streets of Savannah trying to get away in his car.
Yes.
I could even see in the trailer. I was like, but a very different Savannah.
Yes.
None of the buildings. But anyway, it was just a great experience. And if you're in LA, look it up and give it a try because it's
we had a
something
lot of fun.
special.
AJ's looking at me as I write down more Burt Reynolds.
More Burt Reynolds.
Like our fans, I often leave here with a list of things that I need to see, purchase, queue up on Amazon, put on my wish list, etc. And I was suddenly like, I just don't. I think I have Cannonball Run, and I think that might be it.
No, I'm
I
actually.
highly
I do
recommend
have
Hooper.
Navajo Joe.
I'm converted. I'm converted after that.
First
double bill.
Burt. Do you remember your first Burt? I think mine might have been Cannonball.
I know what mine
was
was.
yours?
Mine was Smokey and the Bandit.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that
makes sense.
I
That's
think
probably
I
mine,
actually
too.
do
Hooper.
own
If
that
you
one.
haven't seen Hooper,
I haven't seen
you've
Hooper.
got to see Hooper.
I don't know if I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's a Hal Needham film where Burt Reynolds is playing the world's greatest stuntman.
Oh, cool.
It is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, my dad was really into car films when I was a kid, so like I have like a vast knowledge of car films. So any Burt Reynolds car films, like Smokey or Cannonball.
Stroker Race.
I'm going to throw out this
Stroker,
question to
I
tie
got,
into our
but-
episode. Was Burt Reynolds ever in a Christmas movie of any kind?
Yes.
Which one? Oh, he's...
Man, I have a sinus infection and gastritis.
So okay,
Wait,
I
just
have to look this
I have
up.
to think about
Okay,
it.
okay. He'll
There
come
is
back. He'll
a
come back.
kids. I have to look this up because my brain. Okay, I don't want to say anything yet, but
All
I
right, you
swear
do
that
it.
there's
Elric,
a Burt
what
Reynolds
did you
kids
say?
movie.
Okay,
that-
so
Let's get. We got to get to Christmas movies. Let's
You mean Cop and a Half?
Huh?
Do you mean Cop and a Half?
No, I swear that it's like a Christmas, like a horror. It's not Christmas. It's a horror kids movie that Burt Reynolds is in, and I
come
swear
back
he's
to you.
playing a monster. I gotta look it up.
I did. I've got good news, kids. Found footage is back, and it's bad. It's 1993, and we're watching lots of found footage. It's I watched
what?
You're
I watched
making
two
me want
found.
to punch you a lot.
Just like a movie called As Above, So Below. Did that make you want to punch her?
Okay, see, you watched it because I even wrote.
I'm
"Someone
comparing
needs
two
to
films
watch
today.
this."
I watched it because you said that. I'm comparing two films. They're both found footage. One of them is The Pyramid, which is the best film of the year.
Really?
Wait, hold on. I'm just waiting till my friends start tweeting and don't listen to the rest of this because they wrote it. Okay. So Nick,
now that they got their
a
positive
couple
review.
friends of mine wrote this from our trivia team. This film doesn't work. It's the act. No, but it doesn't. It's not. It's really not their fault. The acting is so. it's like one of the first films I've seen in a long time where it's the acting straight off the bat and the orchestration of how the characters don't make sense together on screen that really takes you out initially. But it's a big budget, like it was big 20th Century Fox, feels like a big budget found footage film, shot really nicely compared to like most found footage. It's like meant to be looking like a nice documentary. Once you're in the pyramid, there's a couple scenes I've got to say, and we were all talking about it very honestly. It's like there's some really cool. I thought the monster reveal was really, really cool and original. And there's a scene. I thought it was going to be a mummy film. There's a mummy on the poster. There are no mummies in the movie,
no
so
mummies.
I am going to tell you that if you're going in for mummies, no mummies. There's something I thought that was cooler than a mummy. So there's about 2 or 3 like scenes in there that are actually really cool. Does that make it worth seeing on its own? That's up to you if you're a found footage. But it's they're talking about problems in getting any movie made, but the script had a lot of probably changes, and it's a different movie. I won't speak to.
I'm not trying to sidebar, but whenever I hear that, and I've felt this way for 10 years, that whenever I hear people talk about it's so hard to get movies made. Yeah, it takes the same amount of effort, though, to make a shitty one as it does to make a good one. Right. So why don't you just try to make the best one that you can? That's what I hate about like postmodern.
Yeah, but I mean,
filmmaking.
for example, in this one, and I assume because this has been the mandate for a lot. I mean, this is a studio picture, and I'm fairly certain that if they could have made it as a regular film and not a found footage film,
I think I know the writers originally wanted
thing was pushed on them because that's the only.
I know.
way
I'm not speaking specifically about this because I haven't seen the movie.
I agree. I mean, all film, and also I think Aja's, producer on it, and I know Horns was on at the same time. So who knows how much? But either way, this is a film directed by Aja's producing partner and co-writer for his whole life, like his best friend. And it just, honestly, it felt like I didn't feel like he really knew much about directing. It just didn't feel like a well put together piece. Now that said, like I said, sometimes if I see 2 really great scenes in a horror film and a movie, it doesn't give it a pass, but I'm like, hey, it was worth me watching.
Right.
I don't feel that way about the other one. And I'll say this about both of them. Found footage, definitely. This was the first time I've been saying it for years, but this was the first time I felt like the audience knew that the whole audience, not just me, even your average audience who goes to paranormal activity films, I felt like they were past. I felt like you felt this collective, like, we've seen this. Come on, let's move past it. Yeah. As Above, So Below just was, if it had been a VHS segment, it could have worked because there's a cool conceit about the reversal, upside down nature of the tunnels.
Okay, you know how much I love the National Treasure movies. Let me start with that.
You already started the right way.
I absolutely love the National Treasure movies. As Above, So Below, quite possibly one of my favorite plots of the year. I thought that the concept of it was so cool.
The concept's interesting.
They're doing this treasure hunting thing to find the Sorcerer's Stone, and they're going through the tunnels of France, and they end up kind of stumbling on this, like, As Above, So Below. And essentially it is that there's an underground that's a reverse of the above, but it's hell. But everything's opposite. And so it's such a cool concept. That movie was such a fucking chore to watch.
Well, and also it took so long to get them there. I think it might have been around the hour mark when they're in that reverse part. And by then you just have been watching shitty handheld, you don't need it. That film did not need to be a found footage film. There's a little movie out there called The Descent, which is basically doing the same thing this movie was, but it's not found footage. And the number one thing I'd never thought about, and I don't know if you've never been in a found footage film?
He's been in a really good short called Found.
Mocking. But you haven't ever been in one.
Well, it just depends. I mean, are you talking to a distributor and to a marketer and to an audience? Or are you asking me my opinion?
Well, no. Have you been in one? Like, Sacrament's not a found footage film.
That's
Ty told me the semantics, so I had to just trust him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I agree with Ty, but I mean, it doesn't really matter to me what people call it.
But it's here. All I was thinking is for the actor, even though on one hand they get to just kind of go and there's long takes, on the other, the actual language of film, right, and performances is the editing and cutting from shot reverse shot. And I'm watching this movie going, oh, I'm never feeling these characters are connected because there's never cuts to connect them. And it was it was like one of the first times after years I've even thought about the problem of performance in found footage, and it hit me.
If you're doing that sort of like, and in that regard, I can say there are technical similarities to the aesthetic of what we were doing, which means the sort of type of performance that you play, as you know, versus electric or acoustic, essentially having to be self-aware of the camera and work with it instead of despite it, was a radically different type of thing.
Interestingly enough, the best scene in the whole film is like the most theatrical in a sense because it's a long take on stage.
But it sort of forced you to do the opposite of which I don't think is the case in found footage, and another reason why I would say that I don't think that Sacrament is, because I see in those that it's just random improv and or at least it feels that way, which is not a good thing. It doesn't feel organic. Right. Instead, it feels like someone's trying to be real, and that's the worst kind of terrible thing for me. And then the shit's shaking needlessly, and then every 3 sentences, someone's explaining why the camera's on, and or what they're doing. In our case, what ended up happening was we were forced to be the opposite of improv and be incredibly structured and incredibly choreographed, and that ultimately meant that the way that we had to work it was we didn't have to worry about traditional things like marks quite as much. The only thing I had to worry about was the person across from me. And so
it's still all about reacting.
It was more pure performance, even with the camera there, because I'm also being forced to, like a live theater experience, like you're saying, I'm being forced to see someone experiencing me and watching how I'm responding to things. And so it makes you not as AJ the person, but your performance has to be geared towards being slightly self-aware of that judgment and the insecurity of that.
Wow.
I chose the right episode to bring up this point. Yes. I'm glad I had just seen it. But, it did have a cool hook. It was a cool hook.
It was such a cool concept, but I got to say, like, I got the worst motion sickness from it. Like, I ended up, like, 2/3 of the way through, I had to go take a shit ton of Tylenol.
Wow. We are going to cut that sentence off.
It sounded like that you went to go poop. This movie made me.
That was really actually quite funny. I had to take all the boys. Our first viral moment on the show.
All the boys had the exact same response.
At the exact same second.
I didn't even think about it.
We got all excited. We're like, yeah, that's two.
I saw
Oh, wait, Tylenol? No.
Elric gasped, and I was like, funny. It's Tylenol, man. What's up?
No.
So,
we're
shit
poopers.
ton of Tylenol.
But it was no flatliners.
Thanks, your sophomore humor, kids. But what it pointed out to me about found footage is that whenever I see a found footage film, I feel like I'm missing parts of the plot that I wouldn't otherwise. Like it becomes a struggle and a chore to watch. So I'm missing key things that I feel like I would enjoy, like character, like you mentioned,
stuff, emotional
character reactions to each other, or who's standing where, or why they're standing there. And because this film is all about moving through these tunnels, the camera never stops moving, and it's painful. And there are things happening as they're moving through the tunnels that you really want to see more clearly, like they run into a cult. That's right at the beginning, so I'm not blowing anything. And there was this thing that happened towards the end where one of the characters, because they've been traveling through hell and they're seeing things as they go. And right at the end, one of the characters is like, yeah, and I've been seeing this. And I was suddenly like, he has? I didn't see that. Did I miss that somewhere in like the blurry movement that I've been seeing for the entire thing? Or was that when I was in the bathroom
it just
getting a shit ton of
That's
Tylenol?
what found footage does in general to me, because it's like all are people that probably tell extensive stories. None of us as much as Elric, but like just talk a lot. And there'll be a friend that's standing beside you. I've seen it happen to everybody that I care about. And my friend's telling a story. It may be a great story, maybe an okay story, but it's still a story, and I'm engaged until their friend or partner tells them, wait, no, that's not exactly how it happened. You're wrong about that. And it just deflates everything. And for me, that's all the found footage is all the time.
That's a funny analogy.
It's consistently going, wait, no, we're real.
Yeah.
Wait, we're real. And I'm like, it's not fucking real. It's a fucking movie. Stop trying to tell me that it's real. I know that it's not real. I paid to come watch it in a movie theater, and I don't need
just like reality TV is, as soon as there's a camera, everything was heightened anyway. So I feel like it's almost the same with actors. They're heightening something that really shouldn't be heightened. Yeah. The performances should feel, they don't feel real because they're playing to the camera.
But even with the deaths in this and As Above, So Below, I would get the vague notion of how they died. Like
people just falling down and hitting the ground.
They
Nothing
would
very
fall, and then the camera would like turn and be like, "Oh my god, he's bleeding!" And what?
Did anybody get drugged? Like on
dragged?
Oh,
of course.
Drugged away while staring at the camera.
Was anyone drugged and then dragged away?
Drugged and dragged.
I think they probably were. There was a lot of people. But if you have to choose between the two, I'm going Pyramid for sure. And that's nothing to do with knowing the people. There is actually, I really like The Monster, genuinely. If you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. There is a lot of stuff I would have liked it better to maybe end, but it's cool to see a pyramid.
I saw one other film that I'll mention. I watched Jessabelle this week.
With the head turner.
How was that? I've been meaning to check that one out.
I kept meaning to check it out because I kept seeing it pop up on my Amazon listing and everything. And it was always one of those like, because you like blank, you'll like, and then it'd be there. And I also discovered it's written by, and his name's going to escape me right now. He was on MTV's The State and he wrote this fantastic book called How to Make Movies for Fun and Profit and Funds crossed out. It's like my quintessential book of Hollywood. It's fantastic. So he wrote it. So I was like, okay. And it's a Blumhouse film. So I was like, maybe it's good. It was intriguing, but it had one of the worst endings of the year for me. So,
is it found footage or?
No, thank God. No, it's an actual
I didn't know they
film.
made other films.
It's a house horror. It's literally like, a girl shoved in a house with a ghost and then a couple people show up. But
yeah, it's Blumhouse. You said.
It's Blumhouse.
Yeah, because it has Mark Webber in it. Okay. Yeah.
And it's very small and self-contained. So, I mean, it's literally 5 actors and a ghost in a house. And they don't even show most of the house because she's in a wheelchair. So you literally only see 2 rooms. But I mean, and it works. Somehow they make it work. It's a real slow burn. Like you were mentioning with As Above, So Below, I don't even think you have your first kind of spooky occurrence until about 45 minutes in. And so I was getting really tired of just watching her roll back and forth between the 2 rooms. Yeah. But, I mean, the plot is really interesting, but then the last 5 minutes of the movie killed it for me. Like I wanted to just turn it off and pretend
like Mockingbird.
I haven't seen Mockingbird yet, but
I mean, check that one
just
out.
Unfathomably poor ending. Like one of the poorest I've almost ever seen of a movie because it is just impossible. You know, when you see a movie that's it's not about a good or bad ending. It's just like, no. you just know there's no logic behind it at all.
And my throwback to what we were talking about before, I was saying that there's a Burt Reynolds movie that's like a kid's movie where it's like a monster movie. It's called Frankenstein and Me from 1996.
Whoa.
I highly recommend checking this out.
I know he was in All Dogs. He was a voice in All Dogs Go to Heaven, but was he in the All Dogs Go to Heaven Christmas Carol one?
Don't know.
This doesn't look like a real movie. It looks like Burt was photoshopped onto this poster.
No,
look at
I
that.
swear to God.
They put his little face in the corner.
That's how it was back then, man.
He's the narrator, I think, of the movie.
No, he is definitely in that. So, Frankenstein and Me from 1996. I don't think it ever made it to DVD, so you may have to just pick up the VHS copy.
We can all be fighting over it on eBay, bidding each other by $1.
Was that it in terms of things?
Yeah, well, the others are Christmas related, so we'll wait for that.
And actually, the one last one I want to mention, just because AJ and I were talking about it on the way here, I'm going to talk a lot more extensively about this next week for our best of the year. One, and I knew you will too. But I saw Housebound, which
I love that movie.
Loved it. It's actually, the way that I got it is it's a Blu-ray exclusive on Amazon. Amazon's got the Blu-ray exclusively, whatever. So I picked it up through them, and it's exactly as Elric had mentioned. It's probably one of the best horror comedies since Cabin in the Woods. It's very smart, self-aware. Every time I thought I knew, because
right about the halfway point, right? You're like, oh, I see what this movie is.
Yeah, but they do it like several times where you're like, oh, I think I know what this is about to be, and then they kind of take a left turn, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what this movie is. And there's one red herring where I was almost disappointed because I figured I was like, oh, it's that type of movie. And then they just pulled some ninja shit where I was like, wait, that's not what this is about.
We were talking about at dinner before coming over here, is that was my favorite movie I saw at South by Southwest this year. And I would definitely put it in my top couple of the year. And now that the year is completely done, it's been, in my opinion, as a movie watcher, a pretty phenomenal year for specifically independent genre related films. And I don't really care about what can you call it a genre or not, because as we also spoke about, our movies and our genres have been doing so much fucking for so long that we're making beautiful rainbow movie babies. And you're
in one of those rainbows. I like that a lot. I actually think for me, Housebound and The Guest are almost tied for most fun I had watching a movie. Forget best and worst. I was just like, these two were the ones I walked out going, that was fun.
What Nothing we do in the shadows. I didn't even get to see the entire thing.
That's coming for DVD. My mom's coming for Christmas, and I haven't seen it for years. She bought me a copy of that, Housebound, and another New Zealand film, so we can watch that.
Housebound, Jared's got such a total mastery and control of exactly what he's doing in that movie. That movie is completely aware of what it is, and it's weird to watch a movie that's getting exactly what it wants on screen. Like,
I can't wait to see it again.
I saw a cutter copy of that at AFM 2 years ago, and they only showed 40 minutes of it. And it was one of these films where, like, a lot of times I saw Argento's Dracula that way too.
Yeah. Wow.
And I saw The Battery that way the first time. And it's most of these films, you watch 20 minutes and they kind of package them nicely, so you kind of get a whole taste of the movie. With that one, it was like almost over a half an hour long, and at the end I was like, no, don't turn it off. Don't, like, it was painful. So I can't.
And I'd heard, so a lot of things saying that it almost kind of didn't kind of get complete, and that Ant Timpson played a major role in getting it to the finishing line. And that's exciting because Ant's, like I've said a million times in the show, big reason I even got into this stuff, and as a young person seeing his film festival. And so it's cool that he had, because in New Zealand, horror until this year, probably because of Babadook as well in Australia, this will be the year where all of that changes, where people will start to respect that these things can make money, they can be great films in that part of the world. I think they were always making horror films besides Peter Jackson, because they knew they could tick a couple financial boxes.
Well, for me, and that's another thing that we were talking about, is that, like, if you want to, what genre movie is Housebound? New Zealand. Like, it's uniquely. There is there's a vibrant, and I think a lot of times that we don't talk about it as much, at least in the States, because we tend to talk about different films, different cultural film movements based on whether or not they speak English. And so I think that a lot of people don't realize that there is a unique and vibrant identity to New Zealand cinema. Yeah. And I'm saying specifically New Zealand because I feel the same way about Australia, and I do not think that they are the same.
They're not the same. No, they're quite different. And the New Zealand comedy, the dark comedy that from Peter Jackson through, is actually really consistent. If you watch TV, if you ever lived there, a lot of the shows have a similar, just not as well realized. That's the thing. And Jermaine is another part of Jermaine is just so perfectly that. Like Jermaine and his sense of self and his comedy, Jermaine's in What We Do in the Shadows.
Just wait till you see that movie. That movie.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. But in Concords, it was just so him. He was always that way. And so anything that's translating is, again, this idea that if you do something super specific, it becomes universal. And he's just completely him. None of that's put on to get a bigger audience. It's not Napoleon Dynamite type, where he's trying to get everyone on board. It was just really interesting to me. I'm really happy to see those guys make it so big, Yeah. There's no, unlike some people where you feel like you're competing, when you see those guys do it, you're like, man, you guys really deserve it,
That's how I felt about Housebound. That's how I felt about Late Phases.
Yeah, those the Late Phases for sure. Housebound, I just feel like not enough people are talking about it.
No, they're not right now. I thought it was going to get a bigger release.
We really need to push it some more, and I strongly recommend
Morgana O'Reilly, I think her name is. She is amazing. I love how, seriously, like half the movie is built out of her facial reactions, and they're the best part. It's like what makes it so perfect.
Facebook told me she's married to a friend of mine from director Peter Sam, and I was looking on Facebook. There she is, and I went, he's married to the girl from Housebound. Wow, okay, right on. It's pretty cool.
We're going to get her in something already.
But no, I mean, she's really good, and that film, I think it's just the tonal master. Like tonally, you're like, how did you shift gears
masterfully
each time?
Done. And that's it. It's funny. That's what me and AJ were saying. It's like when you're watching it for the first time, you as the savvy horror viewer that knows everything, watch it and you're like, they're gonna fuck up, right?
This says, like we were saying, it's like this is lit well, it's being shot well, but this is about to fucking suck.
They're gonna do that. Like, I know that already.
When did you guys watch it?
Oh, I saw it.
I saw it a couple of weeks ago when I got the Blu-ray. But yeah, and then you get to the end and think about it, and you're like, that was some fucking masterful execution. So that's why I can't wait to watch it again with that in mind.
Yeah, and all great horror comedies, I think, are usually funniest first, and then the horror elements, and that one is a real mix of the two. But it's always playing for the laughs are just always so there,
Yeah,
and the characters are very typically Kiwi. I mean, like the what's the guy? The guy's always checking up on her. The previous guy ran the place and stuff like that. They're all
paranormal dude.
Yeah, they're just, I don't know. It's fun. And that felt like a visit home, which I really liked. It's the only film this year I saw that was like that. You see Babadook, it's not like you're going to think of Australia. You know what I mean? But
all right. Well,
I'm glad you like that.
In terms of holiday horror, I thought a good way to start, and this is actually something that AJ brought up on the way here, because obviously we're going to mention some of the classics. We'll talk about some obscure ones that people haven't seen and some of our personal favorites. But why are we drawn to I mean, we're drawn to all sorts of horror movies. Obviously, we're going to watch anything that's horror because that's where I was looking for that new thrill. But you were saying, AJ, that you were trying to pinpoint why this particular subgenre of horror means something to you. Like, what is it about Christmas and Christmas horror in particular?
Well, what made me start thinking about it and having to be like it's not something that I was necessarily self-aware of. When you like love something purely, you just kind of love it. And so you seek it out. And it became a thing after a few years where people started being aware that I guess in our friends circles and people that have, heard me talk, that it's kind of my thing. And, it's a really weird thing to kind of be your thing. And so I was trying to think about it, because if I'm going to come on and we're going to talk about, horror Christmas movies, it's of no use to just try to, throw your dick on the table and say, I own this many obscure Christmas, or I can rattle off this many things, which is fine and well, but it's sort of missing the point entirely. My favorite horror movie of all time is Black Christmas. Mm-hmm. There are reasons why that is, also beyond liking it. But for me, as I started to try to think about and break down what it is, I think that there's some people, and I think I'm one of them, that live in that sort of Shane Black world where like almost everything that he writes lands around Christmas. Mm-hmm. And Christmas in the way that I'm seeing this year people kind of crap on social media, as they do every single thing in the world, where they're making fun of people for saying their favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm sorry for having an opinion. What would be more acceptable for you to think I'm cool? But I think it's specifically that. I think there's an aesthetic. I think that there's a juxtaposing idea, because, being a child that was born in the late 70s that grew up on the cinema of the 80s, I have a pretty high, like most of us, nostalgia gear about cinema, and that kind of cinema that's, magical realism, that anything is possible, like the best version of Joe Dante. And strangely enough, he made a Christmas-themed horror film. Mm-hmm.
Well, you could also look at how it goes hand in hand with, because of your age, your nostalgia, our nostalgia for the 80s,
yes,
is the same as our nostalgia for Christmas, because we were that age.
Yes,
in the 80s.
And that's
so
exactly,
we were kids, and we want that Christmas.
Yeah, because that's me, so that it goes deeper than just horror when it comes to Christmas films. Mm-hmm. I will watch any movie if it's set around Christmas. I will even watch a Kirk Cameron movie just because it's like I must consume it. I must consume it.
Well, here's my big the difference I was thinking about with it, because I enjoy them. Can you clear this up? Was your next, could it have been a Thanksgiving movie?
Could
we see it that way?
It could have been. Do you mean was it?
It wasn't
set? It was not. It was not.
It just seems like that would have been an easy switch to flip.
It was one of those things, like where we got to the house and it's like everyone's dressed up like LL Bean and Land's End. It was like, why don't we just throw a Christmas tree?
And that table is huge, and it just feels like
there's a fireplace. So it was like, man, this could be like an ultimate. And to me, honestly, thank you for asking that, because that's legitimately what pops into my head. Uh-huh. And whenever I'm writing a script, the first thing that pops into my head is, can this happen at Christmas? And right. I'll try to gear it there. If I'm writing, I can try to, unless it starts in a specific place, I'm always going to go, but it's got to be Christmas time, because there's got to be snow if possible. And there's got to be diffused lights.
Wait a minute. Back it up, AJ. I saw a Silent Night movie that had no snow at all. What?
That doesn't matter, because it had arguably the best genre performance
Malcolm
of all time in it.
No, but with the Thanksgiving,
disagree.
I'll tell you what is missed by it not being Thanksgiving, besides the fact that it would be the gift that keeps giving. I feel like that to me just would have been an amazing, but it also missed something that I've had happen a couple of times to me, even though I'm American kind of by birth, but where somebody would be like, oh, what do you do in New Zealand on Thanksgiving? I've had like 5 times in my life that question from an American. What do you do on Thanksgiving? And I just look at them and I wait till the ball drops. I won't even answer anymore. And they'll go, oh, Thanksgiving is something that happened here with Indians and Pilgrims. But it takes a while. And I was thinking, you have this Australian lead. It would have been ideal. Like, it's the first time she's experienced Thanksgiving. Yeah. And then suddenly people are breaking in. It would have been a really funny juxtaposition.
Let's just pretend that your next takes
I think it is.
I think we're calling it Thanksgiving.
And that way it'll live on forever.
I'm officially not, because I just don't want to get into any arguments with people. Right, but you guys are welcome to.
But what I was going to say is the only thing I'd like to say about the Christmas difference is the big difference of the movies I tend to really like are the ones set around Christmas or in that time period, so things look a certain way, not the ones that exploit the Christmas character for the thing. Ginger Dead Man's, your Silent Night, Deadly Night are just not as interesting as the actual setting of Christmas.
Exactly.
Right. And that's, I think, the big difference between horror fans. They probably land on one way or the other,
Yeah, but I tend to agree with you on that. Like, I tend to, like, just throwing it out there, people always assume that I love Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah.
And I tell them, it's like, I watch it with my friends. I don't dislike it, but I'm one of those type of people that just doesn't like mean movies.
Yeah.
I don't like and that is definitely
the first one's really nasty.
That's a definite, and I think that's a perfect word for it. It's just
it's
nasty.
Mean
as
second
hell.
one's not.
And it's wildly different, and that's definitely my favorite one of the series of those films. I like the Mickey Rooney one too.
I will be talking about one of them today that I watched last night, and but I'll get into it. But yeah, I think like Ginger. I'm trying to think Gremlins is set at Christmas, and you never feel like it's exploiting Christmas. It's part of the storyline that the presents. But
I guess you're saying like when it's like a killer Santa.
Well, I think most of them are a killer.
Here's the thing: or like Jack Frost.
It's not exploiting the mythology of the holiday. It's
set at that time.
It's engaging in the universe, and so as an aesthetic, it's there. So it puts you in this. Yeah,
it puts you in a bubble of like how you remember Christmas, how you want Christmas to feel.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And some of my favorite other types of movies fall into that. I love Trading Places.
Yeah.
I love that. There's so many things that are geared around a specific holiday that I know. Like my number one favorite movie of all time is a Thanksgiving, specifically a Thanksgiving movie. And
like Trains and Automobiles.
Oh yeah. I was going to say the Robert Downey Jr. Holly Hunter, which is a good movie.
That's a great
good
movie.
Thanksgiving.
That's a great movie.
But I should have known.
But
better.
that's that Christmas thing, and you get, I love Christmas music playing when spooky shit's going down. Like it just plugs me into it in a way where I'm more impacted. I'm more present into it, and I feel I'm enjoying it more. It's just something that I like.
Yeah, my exception's Christmas Evil for me.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I was just going to say, and to illustrate his point a little further, is that I think for all of us in the room, it's like we just have such strong memories of how important Christmas was growing up. So we have like the association with that holiday. And like, I mean, it's like, you just, when it's something you relate to so much, that's usually the most effective horror. I mean, the whole story with Halloween is like, we'll make it a babysitter because everyone in America is babysat and they know how that is. But everybody has celebrated Christmas. All of us have celebrated and loved it. And it's interesting because
unless you're Jewish.
Unless you're Jewish. But I mean,
but you're still forced to live through it. Like if you're
has there been Hanukkah horror
from October
is there
until
Hanukkah
June?
horror?
Is there a Hanukkah horror?
No, we had this discussion when we had
we had Rodman on. We were talking
on.
about just Jewish horror.
Yeah, is there any Jewish horror?
Well, yeah,
we came
Possession,
up
the
with a
Dybbuk
couple.
box and stuff. But no, Hanukkah, it would be interesting because there's so much about it we don't, and not everyone knows.
Yeah.
And it's lasted over a longer period of time.
Somebody needs to get on the Hanukkah bandwagon.
There could be some religious reason they don't make Hanukkah horror. We'll have to ask.
But no, I mean, my point being is like now you guys have kids and now you get to re-experience Christmas through their eyes and all that. And I think just that setting, but there's some sort of comfort in seeing that setting in a movie because we all know what it means. We all know what it means to us.
And for horror, when you then throw it with horror, then there's something transgressive about anything bad happening on this day. Yeah. Like Die Hard it's perfect in that sense because it's all happening on that day, not that day. Like if it was New Year's Eve, it would make sense to having an office New Year's Eve party. But it's not. It's Christmas.
And it will also still instills you with a sense of inherent hope that everything's going to work out, which raises the stakes and stress for you in a weird way because you're like, I know it's going to work out because it's a Christmas.
Because it's Christmas. Yeah,
See, I always feel whenever it opens and you see Christmas, it ups the ante immediately.
Absolutely.
Like you immediately have a heightened sense of well-being, which you can later break up.
Yeah.
And it is totally transgressive because that has to be part of it, right? Like psychologically, when I see that stuff, I have to start seeing the movie as a child again.
Well, think about the magic. So I was saying my exception to that rule of not really liking ones that exploit it is Christmas Evil. And first time I saw that, I just fell deeply in love with that movie because it's a total odd duck. Yeah. It's a very unique vision by a guy who knew the movie he wanted to make and went out of it. He went so far beyond what most indie filmmakers that he went to France to find the DP of Last Year Marienbad, showed them sketches, and the guy's like, yes, I will do it. I will do it. Christmas. And he comes back, you're like, how did that happen? Yeah. So you watch it, but it's the opposite of Silent Night, Deadly Night, and the word we're using, the nasty. It's not nasty. It's a guy really trying. And then it has the most, without any spoilers, basically the most magical ending last shot of any movie I've seen in years. And so there's something about it. It's weird, and it's not something necessarily I need to watch every year. Every couple of years if I watch it, I'm like, I love the guy. I think it's just a great Brandon Maggart, Fiona Apple's dad, is the lead actor, and he's just really good. That's Fiona Apple's dad.
Wow.
And he's just so good, and he just gives a really interesting performance because he's not a bad guy. He's trying to get through this holiday and his job and all the pressures around him. So it's very different different from Silent Night, but I'm sure even the way it's titled and stuff, it has been lumped into that world.
What's the original title of that one?
Well, You Better Watch Out.
You Better Watch, yeah.
And I don't remember. I think it just got repackaged. I don't think Lewis, the director, had anything to do with it. Again, he just kind of like a change. There was a lot of mafia money in that movie and a lot of bad things he had to kind of go through. If it wasn't for John Waters, that movie doesn't exist. Like John Waters saved it completely, and he always talks about it. But if you haven't seen that one, I would definitely like.
It just came out on Blu-ray, so
yeah, exactly. I haven't even seen
That's
it.
so crazy to me because my brain's still living in the world of like the old bootleg VHS tape that I had when I was a kid that Scotty and I had, and like just finding like a rare copy of my shitty my DVD that I have of it.
Yeah.
And so it blows my mind that we walk into a record store and there is a vinyl.
Oh yeah,
Christmas Evil, yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
the crazy cover they
out.
put on the Blu-ray, I don't know what that's about. That's
yeah,
my only
neither
issue
do
with
I.
it. He's like green and he looks evil, and I'm like, it looks like Krampus.
yeah.
Sometimes I don't get those kind of choices.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's
who knows?
why.
That's a marketing decision.
And
Probably.
I know there's a lot of Krampus movies on the horizon, right? Like,
a lot of them
That's
all of a
all
sudden.
I saw at AFM. It was like so many Krampus
I'm
movies.
gonna watch every single one of them. That's that way I exhale.
I do remember one Christmas movie from the 80s that I never actually saw, but I love the box cover. It was called Don't Open Till Christmas, and it was just a bloody package. And
decent,
I don't think I ever saw the film, but I loved that cover so much.
Yeah, I never saw that one.
Pretty
It was
straight
like
slasher.
84
Yeah,
or
it would
85.
it actually probably pair as the lesser on a double bill with like My Bloody Valentine. Like it's probably the movie that's most closely. I mean, if you're like a slasher purist, like if you're a completist with that subgenre, then it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, there are worse Christmas horror movies out there.
yes, there
Like
are.
Jack Frost.
Yes, there are. We can talk about some of those, but
well, you know what? I mean, I don't want to be controversial or offend AJ in my assessment of Christmas horror movies, but there's not a lot of great ones.
Right.
Ooh,
It seems but I'm going to say like, all right, so
I got like 5 here.
definitively, Black Christmas is not only one of the best
Yeah.
horror movies of all time, but just probably the definitive and quintessential Christmas horror.
And so
movie.
it's so
and interesting 'cause
beautiful.
it's not about a family.
It's so beautiful to me that is something that we can say now, because even just 5 years ago,
I know.
like nobody, like that's the movie that I would pull out and say, oh, you like horror movies? You like Halloween? Of course you do. It's your favorite horror movie of all time. Would you like to watch this movie? It was made in 1974. Check it out.
It still works.
And-
they screen it every year here,
and now everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
And
It's a
that's
great
great.
movie.
you know,
and Gremlins, of course. Those are
I
the two
finally,
definitive ones.
I finally last year watched Black Xmas again because is it Brian Collins? Somebody has been championing it.
And I like it too.
It's,
but
it's definitely not a bad movie. It was actually kind of entertaining and fun, but it's not even in the conversation.
Well, I mean, and that's why I like
original.
calling it Black Xmas.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different movie.
Because I don't like to think of it as a remake of that classic movie. Yeah, AJ's been nodding no the entire time. It's just such a God. It's almost like when I wish I could think of a good analogy. Like if like James Cameron saw a movie, like he saw whatever episodes of Outer Limits, and then decided I'm going to make the Terminator,
Right.
and he makes this other thing out of something that's kind of a ripoff of it.
Yeah.
I like to think of Black Xmas as kind of a ripoff of this amazing movie that exists already,
But it doesn't
like
suck.
energetic.
Yeah.
It's got well, you
think
know,
it's
it's
got-
got
entertaining.
I think it's much closer to being a Silent Night, Deadly Night film than being
yeah.
Black
That-
Christmas.
I agree with,
yeah.
And it's just the opposite type of movie language. It
Yeah,
has nothing
totally.
to do with the original other than some
Yeah.
names. It's not at all the same thing.
and Olivia
basic
Hussey.
genre.
The conversation starts and
Yes.
ends with Olivia Hussey.
Yes, that's true.
But
That's true.
it's a great movie, and it plays usually once a year in LA at the New Bev.
The original, yes.
Usually. But yeah, Gremlins, Black Christmas. Well, let's count down any other that we think are great.
I think great. And I think that a good example is to say what you said, where it's like there's a lot of these that we've all seen, and there's a lot that we sit down and watch. I actually waited for 15 years to watch Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. I made this choice, which I was like, I've heard a lot because that was way before the internet, and I just heard a lot of crazy shit about this movie, and I'm going to save this for when I'm in my 30s. And I'm serious. It was a choice that I made when I was still in like
You're
junior high
14
with my
and you're
best
like, I'm
friend.
going to wait till I'm 30.
I was like, I'm going to wait
gonna wait for my
wait till
wedding
I'm
day.
grown and I'm going to watch this movie someday.
Well, because you didn't like the first one as much either. You're like,
Yeah, because I was like,
"Oh."
and but Rob's the one that showed it to me, and I'll never forget it. Like, I'll never forget. It's one of those
He'd
rare.
been waiting for you since he was 14.
Yeah.
It's one of those rare times. Well, I think I told you before we started watching. I was like, I've been waiting to see this movie for so long.
It was magical.
It was one of the rare times in life where you watch the movie all the way through and it gets done, and I immediately press. I was like, "You need to pee. I'm going to pee,
And we're gonna watch it
We're
again.
Watch it again.
We watched it 2 times in a row.
And then I was like, Rob, I need to keep this because I need to watch it a third time tonight, but then I'll give it back to you tomorrow. And that's exactly what I did. I built a fire and I watched it a third time. But
and by the way, that's when, and I came back a day or two later, and he'd watched it like 5 times in a row, and that's when he was trying to convince me. He's like, Do you understand how amazing Eric Friedman's performance is? Let me show you something.
I'm picturing like an unkempt and unshowered AJ.
Like this guy.
Manic, like, do you know how amazing Eric Friedman is?
Let me show you something. Let me show you how ninja his skills are.
I think it's already paused.
It was paused.
It's nice because most of us have seen it the ass backwards way, which is somebody shared that amazing YouTube clip of Garbage Day, and then you eventually thought, I have to see the movie. And that's not, you never want to have some of the great moments spoiled.
I never watched Garbage Day until I saw it in the movie, and then I had the biggest what the fuck.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing.
But what I was going to say is that like we watch a lot of these movies, but we don't. You get to a point where you don't watch them every year. There's just simply not enough time, and also you just kind of don't feel like it. So it's like every couple of years you'll check it out. Black Christmas I'm going to watch every year. I have a specific time that I watch it. But in terms of modern things, there is one for me that I think is stellar. That is right up there with Gremlins, like Joe Dante.
It's coming.
And
here it is.
And I just think that the fucking Norwegians blow it out of the park every time.
It's on my list.
And I definitely think that is the best Christmas
you
themed
say
horror.
The title.
Tell people.
Rare Exports.
Yep.
Rare Exports.
I think that is the best Christmas horror movie. I'm trying to think of in terms like all around total package, like great filmmaking, legit great acting, great photography, wonderful music. It encapsulates every single thing that people that are into Christmas horror movies does. It just does it all so remarkably.
And it almost
well.
transcends Christmas horror and just becomes a great Christmas movie.
That's
like
what
for
I'm saying.
anyone.
It really
Because
is.
it borders children's movie as well.
Yeah, well, it does that great 80s thing. That does that Joe Dante thing where the protagonist really is the kid. And the kids have to save the day, and somehow it's a believable thing because it's Christmas and there's this magical realism to it. So anything is possible in this era of time, and it just taps into every single thing that you can't really describe that you love about Christmas horror, but it does it. And I think that it is like the heir to Gremlins. I got
to see it again. I only saw it the first time in the first day in the theater it came out. I really liked it, but it's one of those films I've forgotten bulk of.
You can't watch it with the subtitles because I know there's some floating around there where without the subtitles. You can't. There's some weird dubbed version of it.
Oh yeah.
That's actually what I think I saw in theaters.
I saw the dubbed version.
I think
that's a shame. That's a shame because some of it is in English already, anyways.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame because they really play with that, and it's just. You lose so much of their wonderful acting in that movie if you
Here's
watch
a question.
the dub
Is
version.
Let the Right One In set at all at Christmas, or is it just in the snow?
I think
Do they ever show a
It's
Christmas
just
tree?
in the snow. I don't know about
I
Christmas.
felt like maybe the remake had a Christmas tree at his house or something. That'd be interesting to look up because it feels Christmassy just because but it's set in a country that probably snows half the year.
Once I was like researching Christmas horror, I discovered a lot of horror films that many of which I really, really like that I didn't even really catch were set at Christmas. Like Dead End was one.
That's right.
With the Lynn
forgot
Shay
that.
film from, I wrote it down, 2003, which is about a family on a car trip and then they get stuck on this road and some batshit crazy things start happening.
Yeah.
But it didn't even, somewhere in my brain I knew that it was Christmas.
Was there snow
and
on
they
the
were
ground?
all
I don't
traveling.
remember. I don't remember.
There was.
I don't remember it either, but it was. I saw it listed on a bunch of sites as a Christmas
Maybe
theme
it
movie.
wasn't snow. I just remember it feeling really cold.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to stay in the car.
I feel like if there's not snow on the ground, you made a Thanksgiving movie. If there's snow, it's a Christmas movie. That's the
But
distinction.
speaking of snow, actually, another one with kind of the same concept of Dead End that is equally awesome. I really like Dead End, by the way. I just saw recently Wind Chill from 2007.
Emily Blunt, yeah.
Yeah, two
Haven't
college
seen it.
students are driving home for the holidays, and that's another film that kind of takes a left turn where you think that the film is going one way, and then midway through you realize it's not. It's going someplace different, but really nicely done.
Yeah, it's one of those good kind of like quiet like discovery where you're not when you watch it a lot of people missed it and then a few years go by and you're like, whoa, this is like really a nice movie. You don't need everything to be like Citizen Kane, but or like Black Christmas, but that's a pretty solid one.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen? I've never seen this one, and it's one that I've heard about over the years a lot. But To All a Good Night, the David Hess one.
Is that the 1981?
He directed it. So
Yeah, it's about 1980 or so. Yeah.
How is it? I mean, is it more Silent, Deadly Nightish? It looked like it.
Yeah. It's in terms of
Nasty.
Well, there's so many different for me like sort of categories of like holiday or Christmas horror stuff. It definitely falls more into that zone. Not and maybe with a mix of like Silent Night, Bloody Night.
Is he in it as well as directing?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
DFS, yeah.
It's the one with the big house or a hospital or something on the front, and kind of the clouds are making a face. And I think somebody just said it was just coming out on Blu-ray now.
Oh, are they going to? Yeah, because I know that's like one of those really hard to find ones.
That's how Silent Night, Bloody Night was too for years.
Yeah.
But that's public domain now, isn't it?
Yeah, because I found it in one of those 99-cent stores like 10 years ago, I think. Like it was just a disc that was 99 cents, and I mean, I made Mary sign it.
Right.
Like I forced Mary to autograph it.
Oh, that's cool.
And that I cannot recommend that movie.
No, it's a little rough.
What's the one?
Seriously, there's was it 30 or 40 minutes of it's not even really a montage. It's just still photography.
Is Deborah Shawn in that? Debbie Rochon?
No.
She's in the one with a tree.
She's Satan Claus.
Oh my God!
Santa Claus.
She looked ridiculously attractive in that film. Like I remember seeing clips of it once, going, "Wow, she looks great." But the movie, you couldn't even watch the screen. It was just had a midget going around killing people and a weird tree thing. I don't know.
Wow.
It was weird.
Rob is holding a DVD right now, and two films that I have on my list. And
I don't know if I've shown you that yet. Have I?
Oh, AJ,
I told you about it last year.
Things on there.
The DVD is 6 films to keep you awake, and it's all Spanish films. Bekah's mentioned it quite often on the show
because one of my favorite films ever, The Baby's Room, is on there. I still swear it's one of the scariest films I've ever seen.
Have you seen Baby's Blood?
Yeah.
I want to see that one.
French woman, I own it. If you
I want to see that.
It.
Yeah, it looked cool.
Pregnant French woman has to feed a parasite in her belly.
Inside,
not a Christmas film.
Inside's the Christmas one.
That's what I was going to say. What I think over the next couple of years, people are going to. I think that's the new one that
Inside.
People are just because of what happened with Levine and with what's happening with their new one, where it's like, well, we can't get to see a lot of these guys' stuff, and that one is available. It's not as easy to find. You're not finding it on iTunes and you're not finding it on Netflix if you're doing home streaming, but it is on Amazon.
Yeah, maybe look at it. I mean, they're doing the new Texas Chainsaw movie. Maybe
it'll make it.
When do we see that it's Christmas? I have no memory of it being Christmas. Do they just show up?
It takes place on Christmas Eve, which is why there's nobody around and why it takes a while for the cop to get there.
Oh wow, that just got totally symbolic
one of the cops
as to like
lights
Mary
on them
giving
at one
birth.
point. That's
I didn't even make that connection. It just totally took on like a Jesus being born.
Those guys
parable.
are real serious about their sort of. I don't want to say they're. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. They're real serious about tropes, like obviously like genre tropes. Like you can feel that Season of the Witch vibe in Levine. And I think there's definitely a sense of they're definitely using the metaphor of the holiday.
It'd be fun to rewatch it with that in mind.
The other French film that does that, Shaitan, it's got
Vincent Cassel. Yeah,
that's Christmas as well. It's kind of just an icky film across the board. I mean, it's a cool plot and it's well done, but it's not. I would never watch it again.
I just side story, just you mentioning the because you were saying these French guys that did Inside are like all about the holiday aesthetic. They were going to do Halloween 2 at one point, which ended up being Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Like they were attached to it for a while. And I remember asking the producer about it. And he's like, yeah, I don't think those guys get what Halloween is. So we had to let them go.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's so funny because when you watch their movies, it looks like when you're watching Inside, you're like, oh, they're definitely saying this is a Christmas horror film, but doing it in a way that you're not really on the nose, like nobody's getting stabbed to death with a Christmas tree,
no.
Like that. But it's like
it's a good plot device in the sense that that's why it's so difficult to get help is because you're in the middle of the holiday season. But anyway, I didn't actually mention the title, but in 6 films to keep you awake, the movie's called A Christmas Tale, and it's one of the guys that did Wreck, one of the writer-directors of Wreck.
Okay,
it's actually excellent. It actually takes place. I remember when I watched it. I think I watched it last year or maybe 2 years ago for the first time, and I remember texting AJ because it takes place in the mid 80s, and it's got like almost a Monster Squad vibe because it's like a bunch of little Spanish kids. One of them is obsessed with the Karate Kid, the Ralph Macchio movies. I was like, oh my God, how did I not see this movie? And I can't remember what her story was. She was a female convict that was dressed as Santa.
I just love the opening is it's like my favorite premise ever because it's a group of kids find a woman dressed as Santa stuck in a hole in the ground.
And then they find, and I mean, that's the thing is they realize that she's a wanted criminal and instead of, I mean, it's kind of the innocence of kids. Like you don't realize the consequences of what you're doing, but they're kind of shitheads. They're like, oh, well, then I think we can get something out of this because there's a reward for her. We're just going to keep her down there for a little while.
I don't think that it's technically a Christmas movie, but there is snow. So if you want to get onto the outer fringes of it, it's going to be really hard for you to find. But I highly recommend checking out Devil Times 5.
Oh, that's
Devil
Leif
Times.
Garrett, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen. I know the cover well.
With several different haircuts.
You have the VHS of that fight with Johnny Ramone. No,
it's it wasn't. It's
one of the Ramones.
not Joey Ramone either. Dee Dee
Ramone. I was at the New Beverly on topic with her husband watching Gone with the Pope, and we're sitting there, and Brian Quinn, who was friends with that Ramone, Dee
Is it
Ramone.
Dee Dee, or I thought it was Johnny's collection?
No, I don't even
can't
remember
remember.
who
We'll
it
have to
is.
He has the whole
Clarify that.
VHS collection,
Yes.
and you can win one of his personal dubbed movies. And
Right.
I was sitting next to Dave when he won Devil Times 5 on VHS from Dee Dee Ramone, and I was like, oh, that's
I'm
weird.
going to say Johnny,
It's
but
But I haven't
still
seen it,
in
Johnny
so
our
I
Orchard.
will watch that one.
Dave would know because he was like all excited when he got
That's
home. He's
exciting.
like, I have Joey Ramone's copy of the Devil Times
Yeah.
5, and it's like handwritten on there, which leads me to think it's
That's
his actual
accepting
handwriting.
stolen goods because he was copyright infringing. And we're gonna
Do you think that Brian Collins listens to this podcast?
Of course,
No.
he
Only when
No,
he's
he doesn't.
on.
Oh, only when
no,
he's
he
on.
doesn't. And even when he's on, I don't think he listens.
Well, if you tag him in the photo, then he'll probably listen to it. And since that's the case, I just have to say the words P2.
Yes, I put that down. P2, and
Which
apparently
isn't really my cup of tea, but
I didn't
haven't
care
seen
for
it.
it much, but I thought it was
mind it.
very much a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I mean, they really nailed it. It's just a little too predictable.
is an ATM a Christmas movie?
ATM
It
is.
is.
Yes,
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wrote that down next to P2.
A really good one that I've talked about on the show before is The Children.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
is a
From
British
Beverly.
film. It was released
Haven't
as
seen it.
part of, I think it was like Ghost House Pictures or
Yes,
something like
yes,
that.
yes.
Did like a set of films or like a slate of releases or something like that in like the mid 2000s. But yeah, it was just a couple families team up and decide to rent this like rural cabin for Christmas, and they all bring their kids. So there's like a huge amount of like toddlers running around. They start getting this cold, and so they think that all the kids are getting this cold that they're passing around amongst them. And then it starts getting a lot worse and affecting them mentally.
It's a documentary about my life right now.
Because that is a movie that goes pretty grim.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta watch that one. I'll watch
It gets
it. I'm curious.
grim,
I got
especially
him.
having a toddler.
Yeah.
It's really creepy because it's so many of those moments. Like, and I know that Dash probably does this because Marnie does it now. Where like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and she's climbed out of her crib and she's just standing in my damn room staring at me,
Looking creepy, yeah.
looking creepy. And I wake up and I'm like, what the hell are you
She
doing in
often
here?
sends us
That
messages
is
about
probably-
you. It's weird.
that is such an accurate statement to make about that movie, because that's pretty much
What it is.
That's it. It's
If
that
that freaks you
moment.
out, there's that. I mean, God, I can't even.
Scary kids don't, since having kids, scary kid movies don't have much of an effect on me. That actually, of all subgenres, it's become the weakest on me because
this
of
one
having
will.
kids.
This one's pretty intense.
Besides Exorcist, the obvious.
You don't need to have like and you don't need to have or not have kids.
Yeah.
For this thing's good.
Okay.
It's not. It doesn't. It's universally.
It's very effective.
Yeah.
It makes me never want to have kids.
Well, the big one for me was Sinister, where the first three-quarters of that film, I loved it. I think he did all the way through. He did a great job putting that movie together.
Mm-hmm.
But then the last act, I was just like, no, I don't. I'm not. That does not scare me, and that it kind of cheapens something for me, just personally. And it might just be. It probably has nothing to do with kids. You're probably right.
Right.
But it's just something about kid. It's too easy. Unlike Orphan, where it's like perfect sucker punch because it's not what it seems, and I loved that about it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really fun. Do you want to know about Silent Deadly Night 4?
I do. I know. Yeah, you saw it.
And was this your
told
first
you.
time?
Okay, so the obviously
man.
things you can say about it is because I've got the
You're a
box
big
set.
Brian Yuzna fan.
I am a big Brian Yuzna fan. No, here's the funny thing. I have become a Brian Yuzna apologist in my old age because as a kid, I was really not. I was actually a huge Stuart Gordon fan. I always felt like Brian Yuzna made the shitty movies with bad performances. And something has happened in the last couple of years
no.
where
It
because
was
of his
tics, wasn't it?
No,
It
but
was tics.
because I really didn't like his Return of the Living Dead back when I was a kid. For whatever reason, I just did not like that one.
And he did Bride of Reanimator.
Yeah,
which-
Bright solid, but and I always liked Society, so that was the one that escaped. But in this last year and a bit, I've
Book of
really come.
Necronomicon.
Yeah, the Necronomicon I just flat out loved. I thought it was one of the best films I found this year that I hadn't seen, and it's just his love of practical effects and the surrealism that he's fully willing to commit to practical effects that makes me just really get on board with what he does.
Uh-huh.
That said, this is well, on one hand, this is the Halloween 3 of these things, but not a masterpiece like Halloween 3 is.
Yeah.
It's him doing something totally different. There's no Santa. You never see a Santa. You see a couple shots of Christmas trees. It's really not. I think it would have made a better double feature with like Rob Zombie's what was the thing he just made? Salem.
Lords of Salem.
It feels more like something you'd pair with Lords of Salem than you would a Christmas movie, because it's a Coven thing, and it's a witch story, and at no point did it need the Christmas. Also, it's LA, so Christmas here doesn't have the same feeling. They have one good family scene. What it actually feels like a follow up to Naked Lunch, because it's all the giant cockroach horror, and you're watching it going, I don't know how this all works. It's definitely not a great film by any means, but it was more fun than I was expecting it to be because of the effects. But and Clint Howard is playing a character called Ricky. That's the only commonality.
I know.
And it almost makes it worse because you don't know how it fits into the mythology.
And it doesn't. And I think I read an interview at Brian Usna last year, which could have been by John Squire. I think he did interviews with everybody. And it was one of those things where he just got the rights to make. He was obligated. He had money and to make Silent Night, Deadly Night 4 and 5. Right. And it didn't matter what they were because he had the title, and that like greenlit these movies and these stories, and he really wanted to do this initiation story, which is
one of the best American directors of all time ran the franchise into the ground because he didn't have Warren Oates to play the character. Bill Moseley's brain outside his body.
If Warren Oates was Ricky in part 3.
I'm going to do my best to try to get like a mini interview just with I'll just take a microphone.
Asking you for Fango for years.
I don't want to do it.
I
just want to take a radio up to his house and ask him a few questions about, because he has, in the natural flow of class, told me things about it which make me laugh inside, because it's really not a very good movie, especially because it's not very interesting. It's kind of boring, and it's much more like his other movies, but those movies, they don't have genre trapping, so they work. They're more about like it's an open scene and just let it play, man. It's all good. But when you do that on a genre thing, sometimes there's no tension.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird movie.
But that's sort of like the miracle of that whole franchise, because it's such a minor franchise, with the exception of the first one, and now it's the second one.
Yeah, it has this different kind of catch.
But 3, 4, 5, that they're not going to catch on.
No.
And they don't have any connective tissue between them.
Like I felt like the Moseley one was more like a pairing of a movie to Bad Dreams. I feel like it's more like that.
I can see that.
I feel like it's more like that than a Christmas
or
movie.
some weird silent expressionist horror that he had liked when he was a kid. Like when he's just walking, Laura, the whole time.
Did you do the thing where you watched it and you saw it, obviously, and did you watch it and somehow miss who directed it?
I think the first time, I had no idea when I was young.
Because I had seen it before I knew, before I had any idea who that director was.
No, you would never.
I had to.
The fun story he tells, I probably told it last year when we were talking about, but that he had the 100 and I don't know what, when you're in dangerous fever.
Like almost about to die fever.
Yeah, he was in bed and he was literally almost dying, and this producer comes and goes, do you want to do it? And he said no. And the producer went away and said yes for him. Just completely lied. And he was like, oh. And the only cool thing...
I thought it was, he was like, I'm probably going to die, so yes.
Yeah, he might have said... But he ultimately, the cool thing is when he introduced it, though, in Austin, he just got up there and he said this to me as well. He said, this is the best film I've ever made, because it's the only film I've ever made that was made completely on time and on budget. Everything landed perfectly on time. Of course, I doubt I would put money on it that he's never seen it, since... finishing
of course,
it, I'd be shocked. And he also got to work with, I think, by putting Robert Culp as the cop, that was his in to actually give a shit. But it's just some directors, it's a job. He hadn't worked for a while,
Right.
But it really is, I'm like such a big fan of his work that I want to be able to say, oh, I love that one too. But
you don't have to love it. But that's what I'm saying about this series is that you got to watch them. You owe it to yourself to watch them, because they are so. The franchise is such hard right turns.
Yeah, each one.
And that's even saying the second movie, which the first 40 minutes of is the first movie.
Right.
That's still a completely hard right turn.
Yeah, because the way they're using that is totally different. Yeah. I'm going to keep part 5 for next year, because I really feel like there's something nice about just watching one at a time.
Just watch it, and then you can just text me about it.
I did look up the director, though, and it was really interesting. He is the director of part 5, who obviously was hired by Yezna, and Yezna still wrote it or conceptualized it. This guy, he hasn't directed much, but he is Tarantino's script super on every movie he's ever made.
Oh, wow.
And he's like his go-to script supervisor on his whole career. And so if you look him up on IMDb, it doesn't say anything about Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. It's like he's known for Tarantino. So I thought that was interesting. And somebody else, too. He was their script super. But, just an interesting career shift. You wonder where these guys were. He's probably a young guy coming up, and Yezna threw him a bone.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, the big one that we've been talking about, remember the film I found, and I'll be very curious to see, if you haven't seen it, it's in my car, and I'll give it to you tonight if you haven't seen this. I had never heard of this film. I'd never seen the cover. I was at Monsterpalooza with the guy who has all the ripped off movies, and I'm looking through them all, and this one says Christmas Horrors, and then ... and that's not, I guess, technically the title, Bloodbeat. set in Wisconsin. And it's about basically a group of people. And so it didn't look like video to me. So when people say shot on video, I think it's probably just more direct to video, probably shot on 16. Anyway, I finally watched it last night just for the show.
Okay.
I was hoping to have it. I've only had it 6 months and I've been scared to watch this thing. It was $10, total blind purchase. And the hook of it was that the person gets possessed by a samurai at Christmas and kills everyone in the house. And I was like, 1982. And I was like, what?
Wait, is it set in 1980? I haven't seen this movie.
No, it's from 1982.
All right, I'm going to take this home.
Yeah, it's in my car for you.
Wow.
And it's a good copy.
It's a good copy.
Here's the funny thing about this movie. So it's basically a girl comes home with her boyfriend, and it start with the parents and the dad who has a great AJ beard. You'll see a little of yourself in Wisconsin, and it's fun just seeing rural Wisconsin. It's like deer hunting Wisconsin,
right?
Where everyone's shooting things. It has scenes where people are shooting deers and stuff. Anyway, she basically comes home, and the second the mom and her meet, you have a visitor-esque moment where they just stare at each other, and it's like almost like weird psychic bad. What's the comedy show that Garth Marenghi? Almost like feels like one of those moments, but it's played straight, and you're like, oh my god, what the fuck is this? Anyway, she's like, I don't trust your girlfriend. Anyway, you start to get into this movie. Literally, the first, I think it's like 50 minutes. You know it's weird, but you're only going along with it because you haven't seen it. But nothing really happens, and that's just character stuff. People are moving around. But then once it starts happening, it happens like, here's the difference between this and a movie like The Visitor, where The Visitor is so batshit that you're laughing and you're riotous and this is just insanity. This film's doing all those same things, yet it's played somehow totally straight, not fun at all. I would go so far as to call this movie avant-garde, and it knows it, like intentionally avant-garde. Because literally, at some point, she finds a samurai blade and starts, you don't know what's going to happen. And then basically, there's this glowing spirit. It's just a straight slasher movie. It's a glowing ghost of a samurai slasher film. And then it keeps going, becomes a possession thing. The mother has crazy visions. But right in the middle of the film, nothing to do with any of that. It goes poltergeist for one scene where all the things in the cupboard start flying at the dad guy, and but it's one of the most amazing scenes. You're just watching going, I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm really glad this film exists, but it's not a fun movie, even though it ticks all those boxes that should be like, maybe in a crowd it could have been fun.
Right.
I think, I really think it's intentional. I think the director intentionally was making the kind of movies I tend to love, which is like, I'm going to make this intentional, like this is going to be my under the skin. But it's set in Wisconsin at Christmas and has a samurai.
Wait, hold up. Is it like Under the Skin?
He just compared it to Under the Skin.
It's not. But I'm just saying, I think the
director would not watch it then.
If you don't like Under the Skin, would you enjoy this movie?
I don't know. You didn't like Under the Skin at all?
I don't want to talk about it. It's not a Christmas movie.
Okay, yeah, it's cold in Scotland.
It could have been.
You're just talking about the poster.
I actually don't know if you will enjoy this movie, but as a completist, I'm
absolutely.
I know you're
you
going to.
should watch Blood Beat.
I brought it literally
and
knowing that you probably want to. But
it's already stolen yours.
Kind of fascinating. I'd love to hear from those out there who have seen it. The best. I looked it up on Letterboxd after I watched it, and the only comment, the one that I really brought home, is like, this film is just doing whatever it wants, and it does not give a fuck. I was like, pretty much. Like,
I love that kind of shit though. Like
wow.
that's really the kind of, that's to me is like probably the most appropriate to go off topic for just 1 second. I don't want to get into a discussion about it, but that's how I would describe The Astrologer.
It actually is like that, except Astrologer, you're laughing at some of that is just sheer ambition. It's kind of incredible, the scale that film's on. But yeah, I agree. No, this has a little bit of that. I'd be curious to know if it's a shot on video or not. I just couldn't tell from my copy.
But hard to shoot on video in 82.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It would have been 16.
I think it is 16 because it looked pretty good. It's probably just a little degraded, the copy. But it's just weird. And it's, what's weirdest about movies like that is that you just have never heard of them. I'd never heard of that. Even when I saw the title and looked up, still.
This is the thing to me that's like, it kind of ties in with the vibe of Christmas. I don't understand film fans that find out somebody hasn't seen a movie and they shit on them. Like, I don't get it. I have fantasies in my mind that there are people out there that love horror movies that have never seen Black Christmas.
Yeah, then there will be.
Sure, there are.
Especially when they're starting out too. I mean,
yeah, but to get back the opportunity to watch Gremlins for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's unfair for me to say because I was like 7 years old when I got to. And back then it's like if it wasn't rated R, guess what? We were at the movie theater.
I mean, I'm convinced. I don't know why people listen to the show. You never know why people like it, but I'm convinced that it's for that reason that people are discovering something that they or being told that something that they had discovered is good or people are talking about. And I think we get as excited about discovering things. And of
course. I mean,
that's the worst thing about the internet.
Every week,
it's that in the top 10 worst lists. It's like I couldn't believe Time magazine just published top 10 worst films of the year. And I just looked at it and go, you wasted energy?
Yeah.
Because the problem with doing that, like, it's not, I don't have some moral thing against somebody saying a movie's bad, but one of those films is probably going to be somebody's favorite movie. Like, I saw Nymphomaniac was on one of the key ones, top 10 worst. I'm like, that's fine because I don't necessarily love it, but somebody's going to love that film. Flowers on Tree. It's like, so to put things, it seems like a waste of energy.
So Below on somebody's top 10 list, like of films that they loved.
Yeah,
today.
exactly.
And so I mean, to each his own. We all.
Yeah, it's true. You know, like legitimately, like we've talked a lot about. You know, like Black Xmas isn't my thing.
Yeah,
but I really don't want someone. I don't ever want to be in conflict with people that love movies.
Yeah.
Like I want them to love what they love, and I want to know why they love it. And I want to. My hope is that someone will be so in love with something that I don't connect to. I mean, that's really what happened with me with Kubrick. And I know that it's not a Christmas movie, but there were years where I was watching The Shining, and I was like, it's just not. There's something is turned to, you know, just a quarter tone off from what I'm wanting. Yeah. And I started trying to watch it when I was a kid. And my best friends were like, "You're high off your ass. It's one of the best horror movies ever made." And every year or two, I would try to put it on. And then I'd be like, Kubrick did too many takes. Like that would always honestly be in my head. Interesting. And then one year I was on a plane back from Atlanta to LA, and I put it on, and I had that transformative experience of like turning and looking at the passengers, being like, "Holy fuck! Did you see the elevator with the blood? Have you ever seen this movie?
It's amazing.
Welcome to Team Minotaur, my friend.
This is the best movie ever made, guys. Can you get the pilot to tell everybody that this is the best movie ever made?
I think that's how I think things like Possession shine. There's all these movies that have this ability to keep changing through time.
Yeah, when you see them. Yeah, when you see them.
That's how I felt about Lords of Salem. It was such a strange movie. I finally saw it, and I wish that movie was set at Christmas. Actually, I wish that was a Christmas movie because it kind of felt.
Yeah, it did. But the thing we talked about that at the time. The one thing about that movie is if it had just no hype and somebody handed you a VHS, it's 1988,
we would have thought
and you watched
awesome.
it at home, you would have gone, "Oh, that's some crazy shit. I like that movie." But all the hype is what people, all the haters,
his name and everything.
Yeah, I haven't seen it again.
I've been wanting to give it another chance.
Yeah, we should all watch it again.
Well, you know what I discovered as I was going through all this? That a lot of times with anthology films or horror TV shows, my favorites are the Christmas ones.
Yeah.
Like when I was thinking like Tales from the Crypt, they did.
Both the movie
All
and
Through
the
the
show.
House. Yeah. I loved All Through the House was like always one of my favorites. X-Files. And that's something that I actually watch every year. I was trying to think like, what are my traditions? And I love The Ref. I will watch that every Christmas. Usually Scrooged and Mixed Nuts I'll watch. And then
Is there a good X-Files that takes place in Christmas?
How the Ghost Stole Christmas.
Okay, good. I'm
It's
gonna check
a
that out.
love story too. And it's a comedy and it's got, I think, Lily Tomlin's in it.
That's the stuff that I really kind of want to see back. You know, I was thinking about this on Thanksgiving that people our general age, we got to have. I don't know how much TV you guys got.
We tend to get all the best stuff. Like they would bring MASH and Cheers and all that.
So it was amazing that we had like a decade of TV shows that were gonna do their Christmas episode, or even better than that, the special 2-hour Christmas movie from the show. You know. And those things, they're so kind of hard to find now. I just know that it's coming around. Like they're going to show up on DVDs.
Supernatural usually does a really good Christmas episode. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen their 200th episode, go watch it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, they usually, at least some of they've been on for a while now, but some of their Christmas episodes are really good. So.
Have you noticed that there are certain Christmas movies that would not remotely qualify as a horror film that sort of terrify you? Are there things like that for you?
Well, I mean, Scrooge is not terrifying. It's funny, but it definitely has horror tropes for sure. Right?
Or something that like legitimately disturbs you that's not even supposed to be. Like for me, it's and I saw it in theaters when I was a kid, and it kind of fucked me up, and it kind of stayed that way for me. I still feel that way. That movie, Santa Claus, the movie.
You know, I was going to say that it's got a weird.
I honestly think of it as a horror, and John Lithgow. I honestly think of it as a horror movie. I know that it's not.
The producers of Superman.
It's supposed to be.
Wow, is
What's
this the one
plot
where he
about?
Like grows? That it's got the guy from Home Improvement and he grows.
No, that's
Santa
later.
Claus.
That's the Santa Claus.
This is a movie from the 80s where
early 80s, right? Like super
like mid 80s. I want to say that it's like 85.
Because I remember it was the Salkins, the
Salkins.
The father and son that produced Superman, and they're like, "Whoa, we did Superman. What's next? Santa Claus."
There's this man and woman traveling through the Great North, and they're like not going to make it, and these people end up becoming the Clauses. They're sort of rescued by the elves, if I recall. I don't want to get too much more into it, but it's so fucking weird. And Dudley Moore plays an elf.
Huh.
And
who's Santa?
I can't remember the actor's name.
Yeah, can I? No, Lithgow is like this evil like marketing guy that decides
like an exec.
We need Christmas 2. Because so there's a Christmas 2 in July. Like that's like the whole thing. Like they commercialize the holiday.
Oh, that's smart.
It's a really fucking weird. Like I understand what he means.
It's lit like a horror movie. It's got this weird darkness to it, and I know that there's people probably not. There's somebody out there who brings them a lot of like pure optimistic joy, but everything that was kind of the grim shit in the 80s is all inside that movie.
You know, this makes sense because of the producers. It's got the same icky feeling as Superman 3.
It's exactly what that's like.
Santa Claus, like you think like, oh, it's Santa Claus, it should be right. But it's off, just like Superman 3, where there's like the dark guy and the weird fucking robot girl is fucking scary. It scared me as a kid.
It's like the movie that they were talking about making in Scrooged.
Right.
Like, kind of, but it's not self-aware.
Yeah.
Like they're
carjacking.
Like I could just imagine people being like, "Wow, I can't wait! This is going to be a great family movie." And then somebody watched it and was like, "God, we did too much cocaine."
Yeah.
Like, it's just grimy. It's gross.
It's super expensive too. Like they put a lot of money into it.
You know, there was this movie I remember seeing when I was a kid, and I'm going to have to find it and post it on our page now. And I recall it having Christmas overtones, so I have to find it now. And it was something called like The Travels of Mark Twain or The History of Mark Twain. And it was Mark Twain and a couple of kids in a talking mask, like traveling through time. And there was Christmas scenes in it because I remember they were in the snow, and it was so scary. It was just disturbing as shit.
No, I don't know that one. But I was just thinking about the origins maybe of where this all might have come from, might all be because of Dickens. Just talking about Scrooge, realizing that Dickens was writing a Christmas thing that's a ghost story. So from the very get-go, we have a connection between horror and Christmas.
Yeah. And just historically, you know, like different cultures, Krampus was a big part of it. Like this was potentially some really dark shit.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of Krampus really until like the last few years.
If you see just basic images of Krampus, like stealing children, you're like, that's kind of messed up. And you know what? You're right. Though. Almost kind of because it's kids. I mean,
half messed up.
But like literally, almost every version of Scrooge, even growing up, I feel like once you get to the Ghost of Christmas Future, it's always a little scary.
Oh, no, it's actually kind of scary for a comedy. I remember seeing that in theaters, and it really works because of that. Who directed that film?
Richard Donner.
Oh yeah, okay.
Scrooge?
It's such a great film.
Let's shoot out some quick titles then, I guess.
I'll give you guys a really, really deep cut.
Okay.
So back in the mid 2000s, there was this, you know how we had the Masters of Horror here? Well, they did kind of the same thing in Japan.
Oh.
And so it was right when we were doing the Masters of Horror and Fear Itself and things like that. And hold on, I had to write down the title because I can never say this.
Snickerdoodle Rob?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Sugar Cookie, anyone?
Bekah's mom made us cookies.
Yes. Kazuo Umezi's Horror Theater. And this only came to me because it was sent to me by a Fango fan who knows I'm like way into Japanese horror. And it was an anthology show set up very much like Masters of Horror, where each one was a different horror director, and they were directing stories based off this guy's mangas. He'd drawn these like horror manga comics. And there's one that they did called The Present, which is absolutely fantastic. And the entire segment is on YouTube, and I highly recommend it. It's just these horrible kids. And this girl, like her parents swore that, if she didn't go to bed, Santa Claus was going to get her. And she's grown up kind of scared to death of Santa Claus. And then it fast forwards, and she's now like 18 years old, and she's out with her friends, and they're just horrible people, and Santa shows up and all hell breaks loose, and it is gory and fun and beautifully filmed. So
you mentioned one on your Facebook page a couple days ago that I've never seen. I've always seen the art, which is Elves.
Oh, 1989.
Should I watch Elves?
I'd love to see that one.
Elves has nothing to do with Santa or Christmas. It's kind of confusing.
Poster art has a present in little,
and it even says like Santa's come. It's got some type of like Santa relation in the tagline. But that's actually a fun movie. It's about the Nazis used elves. What? I kid you not.
Wait, AJ's chomping at the bit, so that means he has something to say about elves.
No, I really don't.
Okay.
That's my face of trying to not forget what I was going to say.
The main character in it, Dan, Oh gosh, I can't even remember his name now. I'm gonna have to look it up while you guys are.
It just looks like such a Christmassy.
He chain smokes, like literally, like you can just see him sweating nicotine the entire time. I wrote underneath it that movie made me quit smoking, and it really did because I watched it right as I was like starting to quit smoking. Like I'd quit twice before, and I was like, I really need to quit again. And I watched it, and you see just this hulking man just huffing and puffing with like cartons of cigarettes going at a time, and I was like, okay, that's it. I don't.
And then you watched a Robert Mitchum film and just lit up again.
Now I have to look up who
it's way cooler
the protagonist is. But I kid you not, they are Nazi elves. They have nothing to do with Santa.
But is there Christmas scenes or not?
There's Christmas. I mean, it's Christmas time.
Okay, I can watch that.
There's just no Santa. It's Nazi elves. They're made by the Nazis.
There's this weird subgenre that we'd be remiss to not discuss. And it occurred to me when you're talking about that, and there's literally thousands of movies rolling around your head, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to focus on any of them and tell you ones that might be interesting to check out. But there's a certain vibe that certain people might be into. I am not one of those people, but sometimes on rare occasion I am. And if you're into Jack Frost, into the horror, not ginger. I can't go that far. But Jack Frost
did have a good shower scene.
Has just enough of some spark in there that makes it cockeyed and like and entertaining. At least that's all I really need from a movie, anyways. But I am being completely sincere when I say this. It would make a really great double bill with Santa's Sleigh, starring Bill Goldberg.
Well, that was my number one note, is to say this, and I really feel this way. I believe the first 10 minutes of that is my favorite Christmas movie. Like, I just think that first 10 minutes is like, and if anyone, the rest of the movie, David Steinman, I think he was my first guest on that original show that you came on this week. My first one, him and Louis Jackson on the same episode. And I had just seen the movie. The first 10 minutes is like perfect orchestration. It's just like Fran Drescher, James Caan, Santa comes down, fucking wreaks havoc on all. It's so funny. And the rest of the movie's okay, but it's more like what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
But then right in the middle of the fucking movie, he goes Rankin Bass for one scene of stop-start animation with finger, and talking to him, it was so magic. Like that was all about, Brett Ratner produced it because he had been Brett Ratner's assistant for like 10 years. Oh, wow. And this was his first chance to make a movie, so Ratner threw some money in it and didn't do well, so that was the end of that. But that one animation scene just makes you go, oh yeah, this dude loves Christmas. I mean, it was so cool.
But that's sort of the pageantry of like holiday movies in general. And like, if you're talking about someone tells you, okay, we got to make a Christmas horror movie, and I'm imagining that Bill Goldberg being a villainous Santa is like something that came along with it, like
to sell it,
like this is a vehicle for starred Bill Goldberg. But it makes me go right back into 80s cinema again, because there's so many Christmas horror films. And I would honestly say that all 5 of the Silent Night, Deadly Nights are this way, that you're just like, what the fuck? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this. You think we can get James Caan? Well, why don't you ask him? Nobody ever asks him on movies like this. Let's just ask him and see. Yeah. I've always wanted to do some Rankin Bass shit. Like that gives that movie such value to watch, because you're like, what the fuck?
And since we're talking about what the fuck movies, I just looked it up. The chain smoking hulking guy fighting the Nazi elves in Elves is Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams.
Okay.
And speaking of in Santa Claus the movie, it's not Dan Haggerty, but it seems like it is the guy that plays
nice. And same with Bloodbeat, the guy who has your beard. It seems like Dan Haggerty. These folks connect in beautiful ways.
Alrighty, just a few more just to get out there. I know there's God, what is it Danish or something? Saint Nick.
I've never watched that one. It looks cool.
I've never seen that one either, but I wanted to mention it and see if any of you guys had seen it.
I have.
Is it a horror movie? Is it a comedy?
It's kind of that hybrid. It's kind of a hybrid, and what's really sad about it is that you'll probably see it on Netflix Instant. Okay. And because it's always on there. And what really sucks about that is that it is a horrifically dubbed version of it. Yeah. And that's a shame, because there's some crazy filmmaking, and in terms of, when you're talking about like Scandinavian, Norwegian, they're kind of kicking our ass because they're technically making some like on the filmic end of things. Just that's probably my biggest compliment about Rare Exports. Like all the Norwegian films.
But same with things like Babadook and it's because the government's also they're making like 3 movies a year,
right?
So a lot of good resources go into that.
And it's going to end up in my top 10. And what's weird is I haven't seen it on anybody else's top 10. Is I think a Scandinavian Ragnarok came out this year. I haven't gotten to see that film. So good.
Ragnarok? Oh, no, I'm thinking of the German thing with the ramrod that they have to knock through the wall, the zombies.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
She talked about that one, I think,
Ragnarok?
Earlier.
It's about a group of people looking for a serpent at the end of the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's an old Fango movie, which isn't exactly great, but I remember it had, I'm going to actually break it out this Christmas, but it's called One Hell of a Christmas. And it was a film that Fango Films put it out when they were doing... I think it was in the same era of like slashers, like when they were doing those direct-to-video DVD things in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, we usually do those like every 3 years. So
this was 2002. 2002. So the very beginning of the 2000s, there was a home video market where there was like 2 or 3 Fango titles, and that was one of them. One Hell of a Christmas. And then there's things like... arguably we could say Child's Play. That's in Chicago.
Yeah, and that's a good way of doing it. It's like a
time. backdrop.
It's about, just like Gremlins, it's about the present you're giving. But that's the importance, not so much exploiting
But
the season.
It's actually his birthday, but but it's Chicago I think in December, right? So it's got, I gotta imagine that's Christmas. Is Chopping Mall Christmas?
It's on a list I saw, but it never crossed my mind. It didn't feel like
Mall
it.
is not a Christmas movie.
No, okay.
But I've seen it on lists for it, so I don't know what that connection is. Maybe there's some reference in one shot.
I know that Wynorski's made like an on-video kind of like Christmas horror movie, but I think.
He's made a lot of kids, probably Christmas type things.
Yeah.
When he's not making porn. Porn, kids movies, and then B movies.
I keep being told I need to watch Transylvania. Is that it? Transylvania Twist?
I haven't seen that one.
I guess I haven't seen that one either. Yeah. Okay. 2 I've never heard of. I don't know if any of you guys have seen them, but there's something called Christmas Nightmare, and then there's something called Christmas Season Nightmare. No. I have no idea if they're direct-to-video, if they're shot on video, or what the story is with those, but I looked those up. And
Christmas Nightmare sounds familiar, but I've never heard of Christmas Season Nightmare.
Yeah, it was 2 separate titles.
There's a great movie that I don't know... I don't know how it takes place on Christmas, but I'm seeing it on a list, and it's a movie I've always loved called Who Slew Auntie Roo? Curtis Harrington and Robert Aldrich were both making these series of movies. Often they're on double discs, and they're all really good.
It's one of those like MGM Midnights.
Yeah, after What Happened to Baby Jane, there was a couple years later, there was these color ones, Debbie Reynolds and Shelley Winters, and that one's particularly good. It's on a Christmas list. I'd have to watch it again to know.
Is that one Christmas?
Well, it says it's on a Christmas list. That's the only reason I am saying.
Wow, I don't remember.
I'd have to see it again. Some of these though look kind of patchy. Like even Day of the Beast is being put on this.
See, that one is it happens on Christmas, but not until the very end. And the Christmas angle is definitely one of the more quiet ones of it.
Okay.
Because it's all about defeating the devil by getting as close to him as possible. And they have to be there for the birth of the Antichrist, which happens to be on Christmas Eve. But that's just kind of like a side point. Like I had it on my list, and then I was like, I don't really think it's a Christmas movie.
I can't fucking believe that we haven't talked about this because everybody watches it on. I'm sorry, everybody watches it on Halloween, but The Legend of Hell House is a Christmas movie.
Really?
I just saw it come up. It's either streaming on Hulu or Netflix. I saw it somewhere.
It's on Netflix right now.
Okay, that's it.
It technically is because they go to the house on my birthday, which is the 21st.
And they're there the whole...
And they're supposed to be picked up, I think, on Christmas Eve, if I'm correct. But yeah, and it's got... Because it just is something we think about, even when the titles come up.
Right.
The title's like orange. But there's this
on the
spooky, cold... English sensibility to it.
And once they're in the house, you lose all sense of time because they're just stuck in there. And it's that's one of those pickups that Scream Factory really got lucky with, I think, because it's such a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Blu-ray, but last time I saw it like on TCM or something. It's
actually
great.
the version of it that's on Netflix Instant is not bad at all.
Okay, it's a really good film. It's got a great cast and just it's wacky, but actually really dark. Yeah. Like what's actually going on, the guy whose house it is. It's a really dark story.
You can't get this soundtrack. The score to it, I don't think anywhere, but that's worth watching a couple times just to hear the sounds in that movie are so jacked. It's great.
Yeah.
I will say that about this Wisconsin one I'm handing you. The one thing I thought from about the 20-minute mark, I was like, this is a really interesting score.
He's still talking about Bloodbeat.
Bloodbeat.
It sounds epic.
It's just so wacky.
We'll know.
Yeah, but like I said, don't expect that you'll have fun necessarily. You might. Maybe you should watch it together. You'll have more fun. Yeah. But Wisconsin looks great. Winter, a lot of dead deer.
Well, all right. Well, we wanted to do this episode. We were trying to coincide it with Christmas, but we feel like, you know what, we should do it a little bit earlier. That way,
people can watch some of these.
Yeah, because then when it's like after Christmas, you're like, oh, but it's over already.
Plus, there's time for you to listen to this and tell us what we missed.
I know. So we have.
So if there's something we want to
And
see,
to me, that's honestly like really, really, really important.
Yeah.
Like, I just love finding new stuff that fits in this world.
Yeah.
That you didn't know about, and there has to be like hundreds.
Yeah, and there has to be some good ones. Actually, the really bad one that I remember just being like, oh my God, what is it? It was called Treevenge.
Yeah. There's a Treevenge too.
Oh, really? I don't know, but I just remember seeing it once on YouTube, I think, when I was doing a Christmas show, and I was like, what is this?
That's
like,
a recent film because I swear,
maybe early 90s or something.
I have a press release on Treevenge too that I definitely...
But that might be a long gap, you never know.
It's somewhat recent. I want to say I got
it's
it
like
within
Dumb
the
and
past
Dumber.
couple
They
of
waited
years.
20 years.
They waited 20 years.
Yeah.
The audiences demanded it.
One of our listeners, Justin LaFero, who comments frequently on our Facebook, actually mentioned one called The 13th Day of Christmas and says it's an obscure Christmas telemovie from the UK. Huh. Out of print, but might be able to see it on YouTube.
Sometimes they're putting out their TV movies now from the BBC especially, and there's some good horror ones in there.
Yeah.
They're imports though, so... But yeah, I've been noticing that people are giving a shit now about some of that old BBC stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
And thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. Yes.
Yeah. He knew you were a Christmas fan. Did you see him in one of the... Wasn't there a signing or something? Is it in Indiana? Didn't you go to Indiana?
No, not yet.
I did go to Indiana University for a while.
In the future, you'll be there.
In the future.
Oh, Cincinnati. Yeah, I'm going to do my first one of those things.
Yes.
Oh, fun. When do you go?
AJ's doing Horrorhound.
Oh,
That's
man,
March.
I don't want it to turn into one of
Let's
those things.
pimp it, because unlike most celebrities...
Unlike most celebrities, I am not a celebrity.
Well, that's for starters. No, AJ is signing for free the entire weekend.
He's terrific.
Not charging for your autograph.
It's a weird thing because, when we talk about movies, I'll try to be really super brief about this, but I don't like the idea of like fan. I associate things with like, I'm a huge fan of Eric Freeman's performance in this movie, or I'm a huge fan of this type of movie. But what I love about movies and what's transformative about them are that they can bring us together, and all I want is that conversation. Mm-hmm. And I don't care who that's with. If it's somebody that loves movies, then we're the same species, and we speak the same language. And there's a lot of ugliness and a lot of convention culture that I saw coming up, when I went to them when I was younger, and I started to make movies, and I would go, like, I went to a couple, and I saw some stuff going on that kind of grossed me out. And I didn't want to ever be a part of that. And so I, having been doing these for like 9 years, you get asked to do it after a while. And I've always said no. And there's a handful of reasons. One is that I never wanted to profit off of the concept of a personality. Mm-hmm. And I always also thought that was really bad for storytelling, because it's like, I don't want to be signing pictures from some movie I made that 10 years ago that 5 people watched and hoping that someone's going to give me money for it. And then that's the other part. I fucking hate the idea that someone spends like $100 or whatever to get into this place, and their hard-earned money, and that is there because they love movies, and then I'm going to shaft them and charge them for what, 2 minutes of conversation and like a picture. And so that's why I always said no. And it got to the point where they knew that was why I said no. And I've had fights with fellow actors that do that, and more power to them. It's just a thing that I couldn't do. And they came to me, Horrorhound came to me, and were like, okay, we know you're going to say no, but before you say no, can we just say that, is there anything that you'd want to, do? And I was like, well, I would want to I would want no one to have to pay for it. And they were like, okay, you can do that. And then I started talking to them about it, and they ended up being really great about it. So yeah, we're going to maybe screen a movie there. And I don't honestly even know if it'll be one that I'm in. It may be a new one that I saw that's like, you guys have to watch this movie that doesn't have distribution yet or something.
That's
I don't know. You should show the Christmas zombie one you haven't made.
Yeah.
People want to see this.
I hear people should see Blood Beat. So.
Perhaps Blood Beat would be
that would be an amazing connection.
So I'm going to partner up with a local food bank in Cincinnati. Cool. So yeah, it ended up being something that seems like it could be like a bit of a positive thing and less of a narcissism trip.
Will you still have to print photos of yourself, or will they bring stuff?
Nope. Horrorhound is providing photos that if you pay to go to the thing, you can have. And if anyone's listening to this that's actually going to go to that thing, just know that like you can literally, I don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. I'll sign whatever you've got, and I'll sign your baby.
And your copies of Creepshow 3.
I would gladly sign it. If anybody has any copies of Creepshow 3, I will gladly sign the shit out of those.
I've only seen your part of that movie in Spanish.
Same here.
It was on TV once. Yeah, it was on TV once, and I thought, oh, cool, AJ.
Accent.
And I started watching, and it was in Spanish. I was like, oh, I got to just watch your scene. So I've never actually seen you deliver your own lines. No.
That's probably for the best.
Okay.
I just got booked at Shock PopCon in Florida in February. I will be charging a Sylvester Stallone amount for my autograph.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
like
ridiculous.
$500 at least. What do you think?
You know what? The one thing you'd say, though, about it, because I don't...
It's a Fango booth. They throw things at me, and I'm like, have a free magazine. It's awesome.
I didn't grow up on it like you guys did. But coming over, what the bummer about it is, with the charging, is that there are all these people. I remember going to the first one was the Chicago Flashback one, and I think Herschel Gordon Lewis, Ruggero Deodato, and Bava, and maybe Coppola. Not Coppola, sorry, Romero were all there. And it was so exciting to me as a fan, just walking in and going, oh my God, I grew up in New Zealand, never seen these people in a room. But then I got the people I would have loved to have just had a side quick conversation, like Kelly Maroney or somebody like that. You then see the big sign saying 20, 30, so you start averting your eye contact because you can't get into a conversation because you're scared because you have no more money. And so I find that there's all these people I just would have loved to have even had a few exchanges with that I just kind of was scared to even stop.
At some point in the new year, I've wanted to do it since we started the show. We're going to do a convention episode. We're gonna bring a relevant guest in and talk about it because I was there since 15 where that was not a thing at all, where where it was a promotional machine. The studios wanted these people like Sam Raimi and Bruce to promote Army of Darkness, and they would sit there and gladly sign for you for free and hang out and talk. And then
that's how it used to be at Weekend of Horrors when we were teamed up and did that when I first started with Fango. I worked on this for like 5 years right at the start of my career with Fango, and it would be things like, okay, well, the studio is really excited because Laid to Rest, or actually that's the first time I met Dave Parker was The Hills Run Red had just come out, and the studio was like, we want the entire cast there. They're doing
I moderated that panel here in LA.
I interviewed him right afterwards on Fango TV. Wow. So yeah, but that's
I saw
what
it
the
on
studios.
a VHS shelf in New Zealand. So the cover is like, doesn't look like my bag. And waited 10 years, then I watched it.
Then you watched it, and you loved it.
That was pretty good.
But no, and I remember meeting so many people like that just because the studio would be like, oh, well, this is coming out. We want them there. Grace, I remember that was the same year as Laid to Rest. I think that's the last show that we did with Creation here in LA.
Yeah.
Or I think it was the one that we did at the convention hall.
But is it where's the greed come from?
Because even the ones that you're mentioning, it's just not the same as when I was a kid, because it's not a greed. It's just that the way things have changed, there's people like, convention agents that got involved saying, well, you should be paid for your efforts here. And I don't know, it's a really weird thing. I mean, again, I have pictures of myself at my first Fango convention at 15 where I met Clive Barker, Angus Scrimm, Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Doug Bradley. Like every single one of them I met for free. They were all promoting whatever, Hellraiser 3 was coming out, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, whatever it was, they were all there. And I still have, pictures and memories of that. And it just cost me the $20 to get in for the weekend. And it was like the most magical thing ever. And
I just don't know why.
It shifted. I don't know.
I'm sidebarring so far from
I know.
It's
the
opposite of holiday.
We'll get to this episode.
The opposite of the holiday spirit. But yeah, I have some strong opinions on it.
I'd be curious. You should come back on after you go just to see what kind of experience you have.
But that's the point is AJ's doing what those people did back then, which is, and also sometimes you get up to a counter to meet a celebrity and they're just like, you're paying $20 and you're only getting like, I don't know, maybe a minute of conversation with them. And if they almost make you feel bad about it. And like, at least this is me as a fan talking. And then I think, like, you know what? I bought like every single one of your movies on DVD. And like, now I'm obligated to spend more money just to talk to you for a minute. There's something wrong with that system.
I don't believe in that sort of oligarchy. Like I don't know, man. Like if anybody like got less depressed about their life for 90 minutes from a movie that I was in, then they think that they got a right to a handshake and a picture or something, you know? Like,
I know that some of these guys, and this is just from going to a ton of conventions with Fango and traveling and setting up the Fango booth everywhere that they invite us, that some of the celebrities that you see there, they pay their own way. Like they pay for their own table and they pay for their own hotel room and they pay for their own flight. And the only thing that they get for the weekend is whatever they make off autographs. Yeah. And so I know that that's the case. I get it.
And that's why it's like, it's like painful for me to even talk about, because I have such close friends that's a life, like that's a job for them. And I hate the idea that they would think that, you know, that I'm like morally opposed or something. It's just, it's something in my personally that I have issues with about, you know. Anyways.
So this needs to be a whole episode.
I'll tell you what, the coolest thing I ever did, my biggest claim to fame was in 2001. I was working at a movie theater in Irvine, and Robert Englund came up, and I let him in for free to see Ratcatcher, which is one of the great indie art house Scottish film. Lynn Ramsey, who recently had a lot of problems. She's a great director, great film. And he wasn't sure what to see, and he told me he only goes to see art house movie. In general, he said he doesn't watch horror. He's like, oh, I like art house. So I let him in free, just totally, because I was like so started. I was like, oh, it's Robert. Let him in. He goes into the movie. He comes out of it having gone, oh my God, that film was incredible. And he sat down with me for like probably an hour and a half while I ate my lunch, and he just told me stories. He signed like this book. He just grabbed he didn't ask. He just drew a Freddy face. Yeah. Drew me a little thing. And we just talked it was really cool. It was cool.
And that's the way Robert Englund, the person, is. Yeah. But there's a guy.
There's a manager in between.
That usually gets between you and
him. Of course.
I wish I'd had that convention experience, because my first convention I ever went to a comic book sci-fi convention in Philadelphia. And I was 18. It was my freshman year of college, and I remember a group of us drove from my college in Virginia up to Philly to go to this science fiction convention. And we were so excited about it. And we got in there. I'd never been to a convention before in my life. And sitting right there on the floor is Adam West. And so the very first thing I do is pull out my camera. And this is like old school, like film camera. I pull out my camera and I'm like, holy shit, it's Adam West. And a manager came over and took my camera away. And they would not give it back to me. It was a disposable. And they took it and kept it. And I was so pissed off. And so I was just like, okay, this is how conventions are.
You never forget the people that are kind, though. When Rob and I were at Monster Palooza, and we saw Favreau there with his kid, just taking him around. And so many people were taking his time with his kid away from him, that he was trying to show him this stuff that was special to him. You never saw that shit blow back on any of them. Favreau's always had a smile on his face and
that's true.
And would have a conversation with them if they want. It just kind of goes with the gig, you know. I want to go to a convention that's about Christmas horror films.
That's really cool. That's a cool. Would be such a fun little side thing to do. All holiday.
Oh
horror.
My God!
It'd be fun to come back and do one on other holiday horrors.
Well, you should promote your event. You're going to have a big event. Jump Cut. That's going to be all not horror, but all
next weekend.
The 21st.
The 21st,
of December at Jump Cut.
Yeah, and by then we'll have sound.
Yeah,
you guys
partially thanks we did. We got the chairs. Part one
I sat in them. They were very comfortable.
It's much better. A big improvement. Next phase 2. I just don't want to buy it myself because I don't know much about. It has to plug into 2 different systems, so I'm going to let Mike
Williamson take him shopping.
But yeah, we have. I know what the Christmas movie is. I can't tell you. It's on 16 millimeter. But the cool thing is, even if you stayed for the feature and saw it and go, I don't want to watch this, he's got a lot of rare shorts that he's going to play before, and so stuff that even he can't believe he found. He's like, I can't believe this exists, or whatever it is. Right. Just like Halloween. If you're at a Halloween one and you saw some of the
that's pretty epic.
What was the Rs? What are the?
It was about
where you collect for UNICEF.
UNICEF, the UNICEF kids.
Scariest shorts I've ever seen in my life.
It was like this cross cut between kids trick or treating and
black and white
dying.
Kids dying, and you're watching
like Africa or whatever.
I really liked them. I thought they were cool.
Apple, and then they cut to a kid like dying of some god awful disease and just rotting, and and just cattle just falling over.
All directed by David Fincher. They were really strong.
It was the most disturbing thing, and it was
that's going to go on its IMDb now. Somebody's at home typing this out.
David Fincher directs UNICEF commercial.
If that's any sign, and Mike Williamson has got a special Christmas plan for you.
He's always got something that's like questionably racist, questionably porn, questionably.
And before that, the day before that, we have probably Turek's final horror trivia.
On the 20th with you guys.
Before he goes off to the little Blumhouse job.
Yeah, congrats.
Congrats,
Turek.
Yes,
it really is cool. Yeah, the cool thing, we haven't really talked about that on the show because he had a show here. But okay. The only thing I'll say is I like to see people who actually like good movies getting good jobs
Yes.
in development, because it's a good chance that we'll see better stuff. So here's to that. Okay.
Go Turek.
See you next week. It'll be our best of 2014 episode.
Do we end with a garbage day, or do you have other favorite quotes from that film? Part 2?
I would say
we
that
did a commentary
from the time the movie starts until the time it ends. That's all my.
That's your favorite.
We did an Icons of Fright commentary for free, which you could download.
Oh, yeah,
and hear me and AJ talk about it. I'll post it again. There you go.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.